We are live on Proline TV for another Proline Wednesdays. Actually, it's Proline Picks Wednesdays. Get that right. As we take a look at the NFL and college football for another week, we'll be taking a look at week 7 in the NFL, week 8 in college football. We have a lot to talk about besides just going over picks. And we are going to start in the NFL. We have a couple of new things, though, we're going to implement in our NFL coverage, including our top 3 teams of the week for both the Power 4 and the Group of 5, keeping in mind that those teams of the week will not be anything like the top 3 best teams. It's just going to be teams that I want to outline for specific reasons, including handicapping reasons, which I know a lot of the reason why you are tuning in. So hopefully we'll do the best we can to get you ready for another big week. Last week, we definitely rebounded. It was a nice week. It wasn't a great week, but it was a good week. And we look forward to another good week coming up this week in both the NFL and college football. Matter of fact, a good week in the NFL last week. That was one of our better NFL weeks. So hopefully we can keep things going. It is amazing when I go over the games each week, especially, just this past week. I'm going over the games. I'm looking over. I got to put in my Wise Guy picks where we pick one game. That's it, from college and pro. And it's amazing how it's like I'm going over these NFL games and it's like, I don't know. It's like picking the best of the worst. In college, I can get like 7, 8 games where I'm like, all right, I like all these games. Now I got to whittle it down to just one, and I got to nitpick them all. But in the NFL, it's like I can't even find one of those. I can't find one game, and this happens like every week. I don't know what it is. I know I'm not the only one to have this problem, but that is the way that it is. And anyway, we'll do our best to make sure that you are informed the very best as you can to make your own assessments for the upcoming week. I will say this, stay tuned, because I'm definitely, might be Friday, probably Friday, because that's my easiest week. But I'm definitely going to be putting out a video before the weekend on my favorite team, the New York Jets. Okay, so I'm going to do that. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about them when we talk about them here. I'm going to save it for my video that's going to come up in the next 48 hours. I have a lot to say. And if you've known me, and I know a lot of viewers here at Proline TV do not, I have a channel called Prime Sports Network that I've kind of been lax on because of the new channel here and the RLAS Football Network, which this show is also partnering with. You can catch it on the RLAS Football Network channel or here at Proline TV, the specific show. So I'm very busy with the 2 channels, and I do not have time for my own channel. But if you take a look at the library and the archives, you'll see quite a bit of Jets content, and you'll get an idea that I'm like the opposite of 90%, maybe even 95% of the media that covers the Jets, especially in the New York area, on how they cover the Jets. So you might want to check that out. In other words, just give you a little hint of what I'm going to be talking about. And I'm thinking about a good title for the video. Something like, I don't know. I don't know what it is. I had something before, but I know it's going to be the complete opposite of what you would expect coming up in my firm 100% belief in Aaron Glenn. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to go over that in the next 48 hours. Okay, so we'll start with the NFL. Let's check it out here with the Thursday game, the Steelers and the Bengals. It's a 5.5-point spread now. And we're only using the DraftKings site. Obviously, you can use any sports book you want. All the odds will be different. The Steelers have beaten the Bengals 3 straight times in Cincinnati, straight up and against the spread. 4-1 on the year. Bengals, meanwhile, of course, started off 2-0 with 1.5 Burrow. But for the last 4.5 games, and specifically for 4 starts after Burrow, they are 0-4. They covered last week. That was a big spread with Green Bay. They kind of backdoored that one with Joe Flacco coming in. So, hey, Joe Flacco in 1 start is already covered. Here, how about this? And here is another one of, this is Mark Lawrence and his Playbook magazine. And trust me, it's not too late to order this and to make it work for you this year. All right. So, and you can also, if you want the daily, weekly newsletters, the coffee club and all that, check all that stuff out at playbooksports.com. You could also check out the Playbook ATS podcast show, and Mark will talk more about that. Links in the description of that video of how you can take advantage of all of Mark's work. You can also follow Andy Isko's work. Andy will have his video out this week, as will Victor King. Both Andy and Victor did not have their videos last week because Jim Feist, as you recall, last week was under the weather. He had strep. So he just was, as you heard him last week, not very good. So he was really just resting on the extra work. But Andy will have his show, and on his show, you can check out links for his work. Same thing with Victor. And then, of course, with Mark on the show tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern. That's when we all get together and talk. And that's really a fun show. And I'm glad that Jim's back, and hopefully he'll be as close to 100% as possible. All right. Now, here's what I was talking about. Pittsburgh, check this out. They're 3-16 against the spread. And again, this is the information you get on the magazine. When they're on the road following a straight up win. Okay. So far you're following me, right? 3-16 against the spread on the road off a straight up win. Okay. Now what's the trick? It's when they take on an opponent with a win percentage of 333 or less. That's it. It's pretty simple. 3-16 against the spread. How about this? They're 0-8 against the spread on Thursday Night Football when they take on a team off of a loss, straight up loss. 0-8 Thursday Night Football, opponent off a loss. What's maybe more important is that for the Bengals, since it's a short week, it does not look good for Trey Hendrickson. Now, maybe he'll play because he knows how important this game is. It's a nationally televised game, even though the Bengals are playing on Thanksgiving. Remember that. So I don't think he should push himself here. He's got that Thanksgiving game. More people will watch him in that game than it's against the Ravens. No matter what's going on in the game, it's Thanksgiving. So people will watch more of that game than this Thursday game. So, he's probably better off just chilling out. What I mean by that is, he's going to get a new contract, his last big contract next year. It won't be with the Bengals. So he really has something to prove. But still, he's got a back injury. He is the primary engine of that defense. And that defense, as we all know, is not very good. So that is a big potential loss for Cincinnati. And the Steelers better get this win because they have got some tough games coming up with the Packers, Colts, and Chargers after this. This one's kind of tricky for me and I think for some people, because nobody knows what to expect from Flacco, home game, prime time, desperate Bengals at 2-4. This is pretty much it. They didn't trade for Joe Flacco to just start the rest of the season and run the season out. They did it because they wanted to get him in here and win these types of games and at least hold serve as best as possible. So when Burrow comes back, if he can come back with 3 games to go, let's say, that they're still in the playoff picture. And if that's going to happen, then you would think that this would be a spot, even though next week they play the Jets. So imagine if they can win this week, they could be back to 500. All right. Next up, let's go to Sunday early. We've got the Rams and the Jags in London. So the Jags are home away from home. And in this one, a battle of 4-2 teams. The Rams are 8-1 against the spread as a road favorite since 2023. That's a pretty good mark. They're also 2-0 this season in that same scenario. Jacksonville, meanwhile, all of a sudden, how things go so fast. They win that major win. And by the way, it doesn't matter what the Jags do the rest of the season. They can miss out on the playoffs, go 500, 9-7. But they'll be able to look back at that game against Kansas City as a major building block for the franchise. And look, they got a new head coach and all that. So I think very important that they were able to get that win. We get it. But the key is that what I'm trying to get to is that since that time, the Chiefs have been, all of a sudden, just like that, everybody's like, oh, the Chiefs are back. So they come right back. They beat the Lions and the Chiefs are back, which they are, but I'm just saying. And for Jacksonville, they play Seattle and they lose the very next week. And they didn't do a thing. You would think that they'd be able to score a little bit on that Seattle secondary, but Seattle's got a good defense and they can pressure you big time. And they're a complete defense. When they get all those players back from that secondary, following on the bye, I'm telling you, watch out for Seattle. They are no joke. They've got a defense and a very confident Sam Darnold. Speaking of the Jags, though, they have a huge loss in this game on Sunday morning, and that is Devin Lloyd. So he is already out, and he is playing lights out. Lloyd was drafted in the first round several years back, and some people were wondering about that pick. Or is it first round? I think so, or early second. I forget. Anyway, but the fact was, there was a lot of talk about the pick, and because it hadn't been working out for a couple of years, and this isn't working out. But some players just need a little bit of time and new staff, and he has taken off. And he's having a huge season. He's an elite cover linebacker right now, maybe one of the best 2 or 3 in the league. Unfortunately, he's out, and that will be a big blow against the Rams. The Jags outgained their first 3 opponents. Then they were outgained in their next 3. So what gives? Well, here's the deal. In the first 3 games, they played Carolina, Cincinnati, and a struggling Houston. And in the last 3, they played the Niners, the Chiefs, and the Seahawks. So what does that say? It's pretty obvious that when the Jags are playing below average competition, well, they can beat those teams. They can hang with those teams. But when they step up in competition, it's a little harder. Now, they did beat the Niners, so you got to give them that. And they did beat Houston. But overall, we still don't know yet about this Jag team. I think this game is going to tell us an awful lot. Again, it's a neutral site. It's against a really good team. But I have to take the Rams, even though it looks like Puka Nacua will not play. And this is just a running deal with Nacua. If you're a BYU fan, a fan in general, this is part of the reason why I think he was such a surprise draft pick. Because that's what people looked at. They looked at, oh, yeah, he's a talented player, but the guy gets hurt a lot. And that's why he was drafted, whatever, the 4th, 5th round. And then just comes out and plays tremendous as a rookie. But the guy gets hurt a lot. And it's just, it really blows if you're a player and you just have a weak body like that. And, you can count on Puka Nacua to lose games every season. It just is what it is. They're hoping Whittington can come in. He's a power player, guy who probably prefers to play a game like Nacua. I don't really know how much that's going to work, but he's got talent. That's what they're going to hope, that he can pick up the slack a little bit. Tutu's also a little bit banged up. But the Rams are going to have to run the ball. It looks like with their top receiver out, they still have a very good number 2/1B. So they're fine as far as that's concerned in the receiver department. But also the Rams are 8-1 against the spread as a road favorite since 2023. They've covered 2 in that spot this year, as I mentioned. So all of that's great. And yes, we do look at this as a road game. That's how these are put down. Even though it's a neutral site game, it's away from home. You could look at it that way as well, but it just it sounds a little bit better, and it's endorsed. How about this? This is even bigger. Even though they're 1-1 in this trend this year, they're 2-18 in the last 20 versus the NFC West. 2-18. And we talked about that last week with Mark, because Mark brought it up. He said that they were 2-17. And I said, yeah, but you got to keep in mind they're 1-0 this year. But then Mark was like, well, what does that put him at, though? Well, 2-18. I mean 2-17, which is true, which is, well, I guess maybe they got the 1 out of the way, and hey, take them the next 10 times they play at NFC West teams. I guess they're in for it. And sure enough, they're already now back to being 500 this year in that department. So look, that's not the reason to take the Rams, obviously, but a little bit cherry on top for me. I'll take the Rams in this one against the Jags. And I appreciate it, John, very much. Appreciate you as a viewer. I know you and David as well. Always here, and I appreciate that. Okay, so next up, Carolina. Oh, here's the Jet game. So again, I'm going to talk more about this, not specifically the game at all. I'm not going to talk about the game at all when I do the video in the next day or two. So as far as the game, Carolina is the favorite. It's their first favorite role of the season and their first as a road favorite since 2022. Now, whenever I see that with a franchise that is struggling to get back into respectability, even though, keep in mind, beginning of the season, Carolina was one of my sleeper teams. I know a lot of people laughed at me, and they probably still laughed at me after the start that they got off to, but they've won a couple of games now. Now, look, I said sleeper. Maybe they could squeak in as an 8 seed. That's all I thought. Maybe they could be a second or third team in the NFC South, even the third team. But that's all. But this is what I see. I think David Canales is a good coach. I think he's going to do well there. They've got an excellent young receiver in McMillan, who finally broke in with a couple of touchdowns. Young obviously played a lot better at the end of last season. He's had some good moments this season as well. The defense was atrocious last season, so they're much better than they were last season. But they still have a lot of injuries on the offensive line. Now, that they were okay last week, and that was the Cowboys. Taylor Moton did not play. He had an elbow injury. So keep that in mind, because if he still doesn't play this week, then they're down 3 starters again. Now, so far, they've been able to get away with it. They've had a couple of players on reserve that have stepped up and so forth, but it's still going to be an issue at some point, you would believe. Now, how about this? Carolina here's another one from the Playbook magazine, 1-15 against the spread after they score 28 or more points. 1-15. And they're 0-1 already in that role this year. Okay. The Jets, meanwhile, are 0-6 against the spread when they take on an opponent off of a straight up home dog victory, upset win at home. More importantly, Garrett Wilson probably not playing. I don't even know. Maybe he was ruled out within the last hour or two. I doubt he plays. He may not even play in the next couple of weeks. And then the Jets have a bye. Very possible. And they couldn't even get 100 yards of offense last week with him. Okay, so that's going to be a big blow. But I will tell you this. With Carolina looking to win for a third time in a row, going on the road, this is not familiar with them. And as I will say in a couple of days, and I kind of mentioned this a little bit last week too, the Jets are not as bad as the media is laying on. They're just not. Things are going wrong. There's no doubt about it. But if you look at what they did last week with Denver, they actually had one of their better games as a team. And I'm not talking about the offense was awful. Get to me. But because of the fact that they limited their penalties, which was a big issue most of the season, they won the turnover battle. And that was important because I don't even think they turned the ball over. I don't think they did. And also their defense played really well, which everybody thought was going to be what we were going to see this season. It was going to be the offense that was going to struggle. And this is what I'm trying to say too, is that now you have this awful game. Quarterback played horrible. We know that. Okay. Fields was awful. But as I said, going into the game last week, the kid was 4-0 touchdown to interception ratio going into the week last week. And his percentage was over 70%. So while he had his limitations, he was not horrible. He was horrible on Sunday. So he has one horrible game and everybody wants to just throw him out, bench him, put in Tyrod Taylor. It's just a joke. So now they're playing a Carolina team that is not Denver's defense. Okay, so keep that in mind. But again, no Garrett Wilson. And the Jets are definitely now in a play. Oh, by the way, big surprise that the special teams also, which was a nightmare for them most of the season, had their best week. Why? Because their top kick returner played. He made some good kick returns. See what happens when they get players healthy? You know who also returned? Jermaine Johnson. How big was that to have Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, and Quinnen Williams on the defensive line for the first time pretty much all season? See what I'm saying? So it's a lot. It's not as bad as people are saying. And that's why the Jets understand that this is a big opportunity for them either this week or next week to get off to Schneid before the bye. Because trust me, they're going to be giving it their all. They don't want to go into a 2-week hiatus winless. Not in New York. Okay, New England and Tennessee. This is a 7-point number now. The Patriots 0-7 against the spread as a non-division road favorite of 10 or less. All right. Now, they have not been in that role this season. Meanwhile, Tennessee, we all know they have the new head coach, Mike McCoy. He was the Charger head coach for 4 seasons. He went to the playoffs his first season, but then he was 10 games under 500 after 4 years. But check this out. Now, look, it's a new coach, and everybody talks about, remember, I always go over the backup quarterback bump, which happened again last week with Arizona. Well, you get the head coach bump, right? That happens. Sometimes it does, just like the quarterback bump. It happens most of the time, but I don't know if that's necessarily what we're going to see here. Remember this, and yes, this is with Callahan. Since the start of last year, Tennessee is 0-10 straight up and against the spread at home. I mean, that's terrible. I don't even know what other word to use. I could probably use something stronger than that, but that's just downright awful. Now, they have a new coach, so maybe that all ends, possible. But here's the problem, is this is the worst team they could have played because New England's coming in town with Mike Vrabel, the very head coach that the Titans fired. Trust me, Mike Vrabel, that did not go off well. Mike Vrabel, it wasn't like, oh, yeah, I'd like to leave too. This isn't working out. No. That did not go well, and Mike Vrabel definitely wants to hammer it to the Titans, and that means the Patriots, he will have this Patriot team up to go, and not just that, but the Patriot players will play for him. So when you have a head coach that you can look at, former Patriot, legacy, coach that actually beat Bill Belichick as a former assistant, which no other assistant used to do, but Vrabel did. It's got all the accolades from being a successful coach for the most part with the Titans. So he's got a lot to look up to. And then you get off to this 4-2 start. Now you're buying in and you want to give back to the coach. Clearly you do. They're going to play hard in this one. So it's not like it's going to be, the Titans, new head coach, they're going to catch this team sleeping. New England ain't going to be sleeping in this one. It is 7. It is a lot of points. So you do wonder whether or not the Titans, new coach and all, maybe they will baby steps. Maybe they'll cover. But how do you not take the Patriots here? Okay. Next up. Eagles and the Vikings. And this has now gone down to 1.5. Not a surprise. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. With the trends, favorite, road dog, road favorite. But the Eagles they're now still, they haven't outgained anybody still. 0-6. Couldn't outgain the Giants. But more injury news. It's all, with the Eagles, this is what you got to talk about, injury news. With the Eagles, because not just an injury, but they go after Zadarius Smith. He was the hot free agent left as far as an edge rusher. He gets signed. Eagles sign him. Great news for Eagles fans. Well, he retired. Bad news for Eagles fans. They have edge rushing issues, which they signed him, and now he's gone. Now, remember at the beginning of the season, we told you that the biggest issue for Philadelphia, thanks to Anthony Miller, our contact who covers the Eagles for InsideTheEagles.com. We talked about the secondary being the main issue on defense. If there is an issue, it's the secondary. Well, that has been the issue. It hasn't been bad. It's just that's not the strength of their defense. Well, Quinyon Mitchell, the young corner, he's dealing with a hamstring injury sustained against the Giants, may not play. Jalen Carter up front, we know how good he is. One of the best, if not the best interior lineman in the game right now. Missed the game against the Giants, and there's still no word whether he's going to play this week. We've told you about the offensive line issues. We told you the last week or two about Dickerson. He ended up not playing against the Giants, and we don't know if he's going to play this week. Now, Lane Johnson, he's going to play, but you don't even know if he's going to survive the game. And we told you about the whole deal to mess with that offensive line. And we all know about the offense in general, what's going on there. So that's what you have to live with if you want to take the Eagles in this one. As far as the Vikings, they're coming off a bye after the Ireland London trip. So they had a little bit of time to prepare, even though the Eagles had a Thursday night game. This is not good for the Vikings. They're 1-8 against the spread when they come off a bye. taking on a winning team. So that hasn't worked out for them. They're also 0-4 against the spread before they play a game on Thursday night. And they have a Thursday night game coming up at the Chargers after this one. So keep an eye on that. Now, there is good news for the Vikings on the injury front. All right. Now, there's the good news is it looks like they are going to get back Blake Cashman, one of the linebackers, starting linebackers. It looks like, even more importantly, they could get back two of their starting offensive linemen, Donovan Jackson, the rookie, and Brian O'Neill, the veteran, the tackle. So now, it's not definitive, but keep an eye on that, because if both Jackson and O'Neill return, then the only player that is missing is the center, Ryan Kelly, who's on IR. A lot better than what they were dealing with just a few weeks ago when they had like one starter. I think they had two, and they had three new guys. So that was a mess. You saw it against Cleveland and Pittsburgh. So it looks like they're getting a lot healthier. That is very important. And then everybody wants to know about J.J. McCarthy. It actually looks like, as of today, it's leaning towards J.J. Probably, I'd say 65% that it's going to be J.J. Doesn't mean it's going to be him. I'm just telling you that's what I hear. That's what's going on. And we'll see. I also think J.J., because it's been now with a high ankle sprain, I know everybody's different, but the timeline also makes sense. The kid understands how important this is, with Carson Wentz also dealing with an injury, that he knows that the worst thing that could happen to him is for Carson Wentz to play, beat the Eagles, and then find out how easy it'll be for him to get the job back, even though I believe he would, because they're trying to win the long game here. And this is not about, trust me. Yes, everybody wants to win. They're going to do the best that they can win in 2025. But he's trying to develop the quarterback. He feels very strongly about the quarterback. And it's one of those things where if you wait too long to bring the young kid in, then all of a sudden it becomes one of those situations where you then can't bring him in. Like what happens if Wentz plays against the Eagles, plays reasonably well, they win? All right, we'll play him another week. We win. We play him another week. We win. You get my pick. So then all of a sudden you look up and you go to the playoffs, you lose in the first round with Wentz, and you just wasted a development year, 2 development years with a first round draft pick. That is not a good recipe for an NFL franchise if you believe in the quarterback like they do. So I expect J.J. McCarthy is going to work his butt off to get in there on Sunday, and I believe he's going to start. And this is going to be his test for sure. Because, look, the bottom line is he can go in there and not play well, and then all you got to do is go back to Wentz, which, again, makes sense because you've got Wentz. That's what he's there for. But you give McCarthy the chance, because what you hope is what happens to McCarthy, the same thing that happened with Young last year. Same thing. That's what you're hoping for. Year 2, even though he didn't play last year, but he's a second-year quarterback. Year 2, starts the season, comes off the field for a few weeks, gets back in the action, even though there wasn't an injury to Young last year. He was just benched, but got the job back because of the Dalton injury, and he didn't look back. So, this is one of those things where, you are hoping that McCarthy can get it going. He had time to sit back, look at what's going on. And after he was on the field, that's important. It's one thing to look as a rookie or a young quarterback, but when you've never set foot on the field, it's still a lot different. Okay. So now he's been on the field. He knows what it feels like, and it makes it a lot easier to understand the game that way. And so if he can get back in now and play and have that just one decent start, doesn't have to throw for 300 yards, just have that one decent start, win the football game, don't turn the ball over. It could be a springboard to a very successful season for him, and maybe a very successful career. Okay. So anyway, as far as this game is concerned, I actually I'm not touching the game. I just can't. It's just too difficult. But to tell you the truth, I would go with the Vikings in this one, with the line, offensive line getting healthier, coming off the bye. The Eagles right now are just not good headspace at this point in time. And so I'll go ahead and take the Vikings, but I'm not running to the bank, that's for sure. All right. Now here's a game that does look pretty easy, but it's a big spread at 11.5. And it was actually down from 13. But the Chiefs, look, I don't know how many times I'm going to talk about having injury free teams and how that equates a lot of the time, if you got good personnel, to a successful season. Did the Chiefs have a lot of injuries to start the season? Well, I wouldn't say a lot, but they had several key players that were not available to them. But they still had Andy Reid. They still had Patrick Mahomes. They still had Travis Kelce. They still had a healthy backfield. They still had a healthy offensive line. They still had healthy Chris Jones. You get my point. So even though they had a depleted receiver core, for the most part, they were still, compared to the rest of the league, they were okay, but they had their share of injuries. Okay. Well, right now you look at them and there's nobody basically important hurt. Nobody. They're like one of the most healthiest teams in the entire league. And it's like one of those things where you're a fan of another team. I know, of course I am. And you're like, this is just like not fair. But this is what happens when you go through a run like this. This is what the runs are about. You can't go through a run like this in any sport and not, you can have a great quarterback and a historic quarterback, historic head coach, and all that kind of stuff. But you also have to have a lot of luck with injuries. And so far, this organization has, since Mahomes been there. And this is going to be one tough team to beat the rest of the way if they can stay healthy. Now, I think a lot of people like myself would look at this game and go, hey, this is maybe the game where the Chiefs will just blow out a team. And even though they kind of blew out the Ravens, but you know what I'm saying. But keep this in mind. The last 3 years, these two teams have played. Last year, it was a 2-point home win for the Chiefs as a 13-point favorite. And I remember that game. There was something like the end of the game. There was something, I think it might have been a fumble snap, I believe, from the center by the Raiders. They were setting up for a field goal. And that's how they lost the game, something like that. So they kind of blew it. It was one of those games last year that the Chiefs won that they shouldn't have. And we saw a lot of those. Well, 2023, it was a Monday night game. And that one was won by the Raiders. So the Raiders actually beat the Chiefs in 2023 as an 11-point dog. In 2022, the Chiefs, also on Monday Night Football, won by 1 point as a 7-point home favorite. 1 point. Now, besides all three of those games being very close, what else was the common factor? They were all on primetime TV. So this one is not. Now this one is the Chiefs they're on primetime TV like every other week. So next week they'll be on Monday night against Washington. So that's the reason why I'm a little bit hesitant, even though when it came down to it, they were one of my two teams that I was looking at for the Wise Guy contest. So I decided to go another way. But the Chiefs, I was that close to taking the Chiefs and thinking, yeah, but you get these rivalries in the division, especially if a trend is happening like this. And I tend to hang with that. Let's say if I was going to take the Raiders, I would hang with the Raiders and take the Raiders and go with that until you lose it. Because it's just for whatever reason, the Raiders are nowhere near as good as the Chiefs, and it's in Kansas City. I mean, every time they go to Vegas, they blow them out. But in Kansas City, these are all close games. Or they actually lost a couple of years ago. So there's just something about this rivalry in Kansas City that has been close the last few years, and that's why I'm going to just stay away from it. But hey, the obvious take is that the Chiefs are playing now their best football of the year. Geno Smith has thrown 10 interceptions already, and this should be a blowout. New Orleans and Chicago, the line has dropped from 6 to 4.5, and the Bears are 5-2-1 against the spread as a home favorite since 2023. They're also 3-0 straight up ATS in the last three. And that includes a blocked field goal of Las Vegas. And what they had, the former 49er kicker came in and what did he kick? 4 field goals, I believe. 4 to 5, including the game winner. Good for him. Former Michigan kicker. We always root for our own. So they're streaking right now where everything is going their way. All right. New Orleans, meanwhile, continues to play their tough team, which is a good sign for the future. is that so far, Kellen Moore's got this team playing hard, and they're just not talented enough. But they are playing hard, and it's down to 4.5 now. I'm not really sure why, except some people might look and say, well, the Bears shouldn't be favored by 6 points unless you're just, I don't know, maybe Tennessee. But I kind of get that. I still would have to say take Chicago in this one because the line has now started to come down a little bit. And even without Jaylon Johnson, the Bears are still just a better team than the Saints. Plus they're at home. So I would have to go that way. And when a team, they're just on a roll. And when a team's on a roll, why not just hang with them? Miami and Cleveland. And in this one, let me make sure I can pass on this one. I can. So pass my paper. Okay. On this one, Miami is 4-10. ATS is a road dog in their last 14. 1-1 this year. Don't forget, they had to cover against the Bills. Conklin is coming off a concussion, the tackle for Cleveland. They have, of course, been decimated at the tackle position on the offensive line so far. And if they lose Conklin after the concussion, again, that would be a pretty big blow because the Dolphins, the thing that you probably see a trade or two, probably a trade. I know Bradley Chubb's name's come up, the likely trade partner, who knows, but Dolphins definitely going to make a trade or two before the deadline. And that's their strength. And so that's a weakness for the Browns. So that's something to keep in mind. But everybody knows what's gone on in Miami this week with Tua. I'm not sure why he had to apologize to anybody. I mean, he's the quarterback. He's the captain of the team, basically. Why would he have to apologize? But that's the society we live in today, right? And I think that's a bad look. You said what you said. That's it. Move on. If you want to apologize, well, apologize when no one else is. Just do it in a room, in a locker room with the guys. It's a bad look in my mind. But anyway, I don't know. It's a mess there. We knew it was going to be a mess there when the season began. And that's why I think, Cleveland is probably the better play here. I am a little bit concerned with them being a favorite because I still look at the Dolphins as a team that should be, I think talent-wise, offensively, we know they're better than the Browns, but no Tyreek Hill. That's a big blow for Miami, as we know. But I look at the Browns and I say, yeah, even though they don't have a first-year head coach, there's a lot of newness about this team. It's like they have a fresh start. They got a young quarterback that they're trying to develop. The defense is really top rate. And so there's still, they had the big win against the Packers. There's still some newness there, whatever that is, without the new head coach that I think at least can give Stefanski another game. Now, if you lose this game, then everybody's going to be calling for Stefanski's head. But you win this game, and I still think even with the losses, the Brown fans knew this team wasn't going to be a playoff team anyway. But, you just keep some positive vibes going on or semi-positive vibes going on. Giants in Denver. And, look, Denver, very fortunate to beat the Jets last week. But I've been saying this for most of the season, that there's still, to this day, something not clicking with Denver's offense. They haven't put it all together. And so at some point, I think they will. It's a long season. And when they do, they could be a very dangerous team with that defense come playoff time. But that's the reason why I'm a little bit hesitant to jump on them. Now, I do like them. They would be my pick. You got Jackson Dart as a rookie going on the road again. Didn't look too good when he did it against the Saints. You come on the road. Denver, not an easy place to play, big time crowd, excellent defense. That's why I think Denver covers the game. That defense will probably set them up for a few scores, that sort of deal. Keep in mind the Giants are just 6-12. ATS is a road dog since 2023, 1-2 in that spot this year. Bo Nix, 7-1 against the spread as a home favorite in his career. So there you go, Denver and the Giants. Next up, the Colts and the Chargers. And believe it or not, yes, I even surprised myself with this one. This was my top pick of the week. I'm taking the Chargers against the Colts. Now, maybe the smart pick would have been to take the Chiefs against the bad team, and just sit back, watch the Chiefs blow out the weak Raiders, and go, oh, there you go. There's my easy pick of the week. Instead, I got to struggle because it's going to be a struggle. I'm going to struggle through this game with one of the hot teams in the NFL, the Colts. But I just decided when I was looking at, and I had a few other games. Seattle was one of them. They made it down to the wire. We'll go into that in a couple of seconds. But it was just that, you know what? I'm like, I just got a good feeling about this game. And that's why I'm going with the Chargers. Big believer in Jim Harbaugh, as you can imagine. And I know they got a lot of injuries, and I get that because Joe Alt's going to miss another game. Pipkins is still out. So it's generous to call these backups. These are like third stringers playing tackle for the Chargers. Not good, but they were able to win against a pretty weak team last week. I get it. On the road, still West Coast, East Coast, early game. The way that they had to come back showed a lot of guts, and that'll help them confidence-wise going into this game, because the Colts, they've been on the road against in this situation once. They played one good team on the road this season, and they lost it. And say what you want about, well, they should have won this or whatever. They lost it. Okay, they lost the game. So there was the Rams. They played one good team on the road and they lost. They were a road dog once. They lost. And we remember the other team they played when they played at home was Denver. Don't forget what happened in that one. The game was over. They lost. The penalty that was called on Denver had nothing to do with the play. But the guy was an idiot. He shouldn't have made the play. It cost Denver a game. But that should have been a loss. That would have been two losses and competitive losses. I'm not bashing the Colts here. All I'm saying is that I just have a feeling that look, when you're 5-1, eventually, what are you going to do here? This is still the Colts. I mean, come on. You're going to lose games. You're going to have an off week. And that's why I'm looking at the Chargers. It was a huge win. Like I said, the way they won, Herbert making that big play, that should count for something in the next game. There should be some carryover with that. And that's what I'm expecting. They also looks like they're going to get Khalil Mack back. That's very important. He hasn't been there most of the season. So he should return, which will be a big help for them. And remember, the Chargers have outgained 5 of their 6 opponents this year. So even with that depleted line, this is still a pretty good and well-coached football team. So I'm taking the Chargers to win the game. And another reason I like the Chargers is take a look at that secondary. And they got blitzed up pretty much last week by Jacoby Brissett and the Arizona Cardinals. Okay? So that's the one thing. If they can the Colts can get with that offensive line to Herbert. And remember last week, you saw what Herbert had to do to make plays, even when he was like being draped all over by defenders. The fact is, Colts do have a couple of good edge rushers, and they will sack Herbert a few times in this game. But if they can get some sort of protection, this is a depleted secondary. Their top corner, Shadarius Ward, we all saw what happened in that stupid play before the warm-ups where he gets a concussion. Just ridiculous. He had a concussion just not long ago, so he kind of reconcussed himself. I can't imagine he's playing this week. And that is huge, okay, because he is their lockdown corner. Also, Kenny Moore, on the positive side, he's practicing for the first time in a while. That is big. He had an Achilles injury a few weeks ago. Hasn't done anything since. So he's looking like he's going to get back into at least give himself a chance to play this week. So keep an eye on that. But if there's no Kenny Moore, if there's no Ward, that is major help for the Chargers in this one. Packers, speaking of Arizona, here are those Cardinals. They're a 6.5-point dog here, and I'm taking Arizona. Why not? Remember last week we went over all the reasons why, and they sure hung in there once again and almost won. They were our top dog outright upset pick of the week, and they almost came through for us. Well, check it out. They continue. Matter of fact, I didn't carry it over this week, and I should have. But remember what we talked about last week. And now in their 4 losses, okay, they have been by a total of 9 points. How about that? 4 losses, 9 points. So here they're getting 6.5, and they're at home. Also, Packers, check this out. 1-10 against the spread is a road favorite of more than 3. 0-2 this year in that role. Also, 4-12 as a road favorite in their last 16. 0-2 this year. How about this? in their last 3 games. 1-1-1 straight up, 0-3 against the spread. Okay. And then for the Cardinals, 11-1 against the spread as a non-division, when they take on a non-division NFC team, and they're the home dog by more than 3 in that role. 11-1. They're also 6-0-1 ATS before a bye week, whatever that means. Keep an eye on Marvin Harrison Jr. He's also dealing with the remnants of the concussion from last week. So he's in concussion protocol. Good news is they might get their first-round draft pick, Walter Nolan, finally to play off the PUP list. He's practicing finally. That would be a major addition to their defensive line. Excellent football player. We talked about him a lot on the Ourlads football network over on ourlads.com. You can check that out if you want to find out more about what's coming up for the 2026 draft, because we're going to have a lot of coverage starting just real soon on players to be keeping an eye on for 2026, and also to help you out, to just get you ready for college football games for the back end of the season when the games really, really matter. All right. So anyway, I'm taking the Cardinals. I don't know if I'm all in on the money line here, but I probably will be. I just have to see whether or not there's another team that I haven't even really looked at the upsets, to tell you the truth, yet. I'm just browsing through them right now. Let's see. Are there any upsets that I'm looking at? The Saints are 2-1 on the money line, and this one's 275. So yeah, Giants 285. I would probably, I don't know. Even though I'm taking the Bears, if I was looking for a money line play, I'm definitely not. Again, the Bears are pretty fortunate to have won a few of those games recently. So I'd probably look at the Niners and Arizona here as decent long shots. If I had to pick one of the two, I might take the Cardinals at 275 in this one. I do like the way that they've responded to Jonathan Gannon, because even though they're losing these close games, they're fighting hard. And I do not believe there's anything wrong with his job security because of that. Now, if they start losing, all of a sudden it's too much and they keep losing these games, and all of a sudden they're losing games by 14 and 15, well, okay, then we'll talk then. But at this point, I don't think Jonathan Gannon has done much wrong. And Arizona, the Bidwell family, they can be pretty patient at times when it comes to, which is the right head coach. I know they haven't been really looked at as the top owners in the NFL, and I get that. I think they'd be willing to give Gannon some time, and I think he deserves it. All right, Washington and Dallas, big rivalry here. Keep this in mind and this is kind of partly why I like the Cowboys this week, is in the last 2 years, they are 3-1 straight up, 4-0 against the spread in this series. So, and that counts. Again, it's a division series. I think these trends matter. So I like what I see here in that situation. Washington, we don't know what to expect from them from week to week. They're losing to the Chargers 1 week, 10-0. It's all Chargers, and then one play, changes the whole game. They go on to win the game. It's all Washington. And in this game last week against the Bears, they're a better team than the Bears, and they just hand the game away at the end. Now, maybe if it wasn't, misty and stuff, that could have been different, but still it wasn't. And Washington lost to a team they probably shouldn't have. So again, I don't know how Washington's going to respond this week. It looks like Terry McLaurin may not play again. So that's it, 50-50 maybe at best at this point. But CeeDee Lamb's back. That's looking like that's a done deal. And Tyler Booker looks like he's also back, their first-round draft pick. So the Cowboys are getting healthy at the right time. And I just have a feeling the Cowboys will pull this out. Now we get to the primetime games. And let's see. This one, we start with Atlanta. This is the Sunday night game. And this is the game that will tell us, is Atlanta for real or not? Because they have outgained all 5 of their teams that they played this season. So that's pretty impressive. All right. They had the big win over Buffalo on Monday night. So again, very big. That really did say a lot. But now they're going to San Francisco. They're 3-2. Can they start to put it together? Can they start to put 2 wins, 3 wins? Okay, yeah, we're a playoff team. We're for real. Well, hey, San Francisco, we all know what's going on there. Injuries. Purdy looks like he's not going to play again. I don't know if that's the biggest deal, because Kittle's returning. That's major. Looks like Kittle's going to be back. Also, Pearsall's been practicing. They may get Kittle and Pearsall back. So considering where they were, that's pretty good. Unfortunately, we all saw what happened. They lost maybe the best linebacker in football, Fred Warner. See what I'm saying? Cheap fan, Niner fan, big difference. So Warner's out. That is a major, major blow. They're already without Bosa for the season. They will get Ayuk back, but nobody knows how well he's going to play with the injury. But as far as this game, look, this team, well coached. They home game. They're tough to beat there, even when they're banged up. This is not going to be an easy game in any way for Atlanta. They know that. Heck, they're the dog in the game, and rightfully so. They should be the dog in the game, even with those injuries. No Bosa. Kittle barely looks like coming back. No Warner. We don't even know how healthy the receiver unit is. Again, no Ayuk. Pearsall may miss the game. I mean, all of that. And the Niners are still favorite at home by a couple points. And that's what I thought they'd be favored by. I mean, they were 3. That's what I thought. Hey, not surprising. And look, the Niners, even with all their injuries, they've outgained 5 of their 6 opponents. So they've been just as good as Atlanta has in their games. I kind of lean towards the Niners here. I think it's one of the situations where, at least for a week, with Warner down, I can sense primetime national team. I can kind of sense that they're going to rally around it, especially with Kittle coming back. He's a big force for that team emotionally. But I tell you what, if Atlanta can win this game, I'm not going to look at that and go, oh, well, yeah, they beat Atlanta because, they beat San Francisco because of no, I'm not going to say that. They're winning. They're the dog. This is not good. 0-8 Falcons against the spread off a double-digit win. 0-8. And they're 0-1 this year in that role. We'll turn our attention now to Monday Night Football. We have a really good doubleheader. And the doubleheader kind that makes sense. Not 7-8, but 7-10. You have Tampa Bay and Detroit. This is going to be one of the better ones of the season. It looks like Mike Evans is coming back, so that's a big boost for the Bucs. Perfect timing. Ibuka's out, Godwin's out. Tez Johnson had a big game last week. The rookie Johnson, the other young player from Division II football. He's been around for a couple of years. He had a nice game because you have Baker Mayfield. Okay, and see, this is why the NFL is funny. And this is what I'm talking about. And I can say something like this too as part of my video with the Jets is you can just take a player as hot as Baker Mayfield and put him on the Jets. And I guarantee you they're 500, they're 3-2. What are they for 6 games? They're a 3-3 team at worst. Guaranteed based on how the Jets have played this year, based on how close they've lost games this year. That's the difference. Look at how many close games the Bucs have played. But the Bucs, They've got a winning culture, and they've got an MVP quarterback. So everything is just working really well for them this season, even with the injuries. But even if they lose this game, they're not going to go into some losing streak. This is game, tough opposition here. Even getting Mike Evans back, that's not going to guarantee anything. Not going to Detroit, not playing this particular franchise with Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell, 17-9-1 against the spread as a home favorite. 2-0 this year. What else? The Lions, 12-1 against the spread off a double-digit ATS loss. 1-0 in that role this year. 11-0 against the spread off a straight-up loss under Dan Campbell. 11 straight covers. No, actually 11-0 all time under Dan Campbell. So when they lose, when they lose a game under Dan Campbell, every time they've lost, the very next game, they've covered. That's really difficult to bet against. Even though Baker, because we've said this for the past year and a half, and the numbers just keep getting better every time we say it. Baker is now 8-7 straight up, 12-3 against the spread as a road dog. And that included an upset win week 2 last year in Detroit. They were a 7-point dog. They've covered 9 straight as a non-division road dog of 3 or more. Team has 1-0 in that spot this year. So you've got these conflicting trends just going up against each other. But the difference is the Bucs are getting, I mean, if you take, and that's why I would take the Bucs, because I'm getting 6 points in this spot. And I know this, a spread's the spread. Doesn't matter if it's 14 or 1. You know, the numbers don't lie. And I get that. But I just feel a lot more comfortable on the Baker side getting 6 when you're taking a look at a secondary that is still, banged up. I mean, that Lions secondary, they had to play a completely different defense against the Chiefs last week, and it killed them. That's why, as good as the Chiefs looked, just got to keep that in mind. Detroit was hampered by not having 2 starting corners. So they had to play more deep zone, basically was what it was. Everybody had to move back. That meant linebackers more covering receivers. Don't let up the big play, and that's what Mahomes did. There was a lot of dinking and dunking, moving down the field methodically. That's what they were going to be willing to give up. They didn't want to give up the big play with that secondary the way it was. It's not changing. So what do they do? How do they play defense this week? We'll see. But they are getting back Lynn McNeil, major player that has not played since late last season. One of their huge injury losses on their run. He finally returns on Monday night, and that's a big addition to the team. This is one of those teams that's going to be looking for an edge rusher at the deadline, and I know they're going to add it. So who's going where? Will the Bengals finally trade Hendrickson? They have to be out of it for it to happen. I don't think the Bengals are trading him. I don't think that's happening at all unless they're out of it. Like if the Bengals are 2-6, they'll trade him. They have to, because they're going to get something for him, and he's not going to be back next year. Okay, Taylor Decker. This is a big deal. Shoulder injury. So if he does not play, he did not play last week. There's a bye next week. So it's very possible that, this happens a lot. Just go ahead, and it gives us an extra few weeks of health. So Decker may not play, and that is a big loss, because they got a couple of guys that have played for him, and they're not very good players. So that would be a big boost for Tampa Bay. And so the injury-wise, even though the Bucs are without two key receivers, the injuries actually, and the Bucs have a couple other injuries we know, but for the most part, this injury edge that's going with the Bucs here. And then we have, and speaking of the money lines, this would be my top one right here. I was going with Arizona, New Orleans. Well, why wouldn't I circle this one? I know it's against this team. I get that. But I can get 2-1. It's like saying, like, if Detroit was 2-1 against whatever, I would do the same thing. So I can get, and they were close to that against Baltimore, weren't they? I forget what that line was. Anyway, here we go, 2-1. If you're looking for a nice money line play, that would definitely be it. And then the last one is Seattle and Houston. And to tell you the truth, one of the main reasons that I did not take Seattle, and I was this close with taking Seattle with Kansas City, didn't do it. But one of the main reasons is because there's halves in the contest. So no straight, no threes, 3.5. And that bothered me. It bothered me because I've taken Seattle twice in the Wise Guy contest, and I hit them both. I also took Vanderbilt 3 times. The first 2 times I hit. The third time I lost. That was the Alabama game when I got beat badly on that final touchdown. And I mean, there was like 59 minutes. No, it was 58 minutes and change in the game where there was no doubt that Vandy was covering that game. 58.5 minutes. And it only took 1 play to lose. So that's why, and that was the 3rd game. And I can get superstitious in that way. And I was going, I'm going to take Seattle. I had success 2 straight games with Vandy. And in the 3rd one, I got screwed. And I don't know. Now I'm going to take Seattle for a 3rd straight time, and it's 3.5. And I actually think this could be a really close game. So I was like, look, I like Seattle to win. I'm definitely taking them big on the money line. I'll say that. And I love the fact it's the last game of the week, because I'm going to look for several ways to do these 5-6 team parlays and put them all with Seattle, last team, money line. And then this way, if something happens and I have it, and I'll probably even also just a regular 2 and 3 teamer, because it's not a major number. It's -166. So I can do that and then still hedge with taking the money line in Houston if I need to do that, of course, which I would if I was still alive. But that's the way I would do it because I don't want anything to do with 3.5. I just get the feeling that this could be a real close game because if you look at it too, one of the reasons I feel that way is that Seattle has not been a good spread team under Mike Macdonald. They're 3-8 with a tie, 3-8-1 at home against the spread under Macdonald. Very bad. But they've covered 5 straight on Monday Night Football. That's good. We know how impressive that team and the crowd can be in nationally televised games. Another thing I'm concerned with is Houston finally getting healthy on offense. The passing game is starting to get healthy as well. And Seattle's got a real banged up secondary. So Witherspoon probably going to miss the game again. They've got a bye too. So there's going to be some players like that will come back in a few weeks. Woolen dealing with a concussion, didn't play last week. He's another one that could miss the game. Love, the safety, didn't play last week. He's been banged up for a few weeks. So, they got away with it against Jacksonville. But and look, Seattle's defensive line is one of the best. Their pressure up front, their front seven is probably the most underrated in the NFL. And they're going to go up. I can actually drop this because we're done with college, NFL. So they're one of the best in the NFL, and they're going up against that Houston offensive line. And we know that Houston offensive line is not good. So a great opportunity because even with that banged up secondary, if they can just pressure straight to hell, that will make things a lot easier. I'm taking Seattle in this one. 3 points, you just saw it there. But I definitely suggest to take the money line in any way. They're coming off a bye, Houston too. So they had time to prepare in this game. So there are things that worry me, but I do think Seattle's the better team. Houston's got to go to the West Coast, Monday night and all that. So I'm going to go ahead and take the Seahawks. Before I get into the picks for college, I'm going to pop up that the new rankings we have, or I should say the teams of the week. Let's just put it that way. All right. Teams of the week. As I said in the beginning of the show, so we have a power 4 and a group of 5. We have our top 3 teams of the week. So now what I mean by this is on the power 4 side, Indiana has completely proven now that they are national championship worthy. And that is because, as we've been saying since the beginning of the season, this is a different era in college football. Okay, try to just let everybody know even before the season began, and to tell you the truth, I guess I'm not going to say it's happening more than I thought, but it's one of those things where I guess I myself needed to see it to believe it, and the proof is just all over the place. Anybody can win the national championship, meaning you get to the playoffs and you're even one of the teams from last year. Like one of those Alabama, South Carolina teams, if they would get into the playoffs, that type of talent, they get into the postseason, anybody can win the national championship. Anybody. So I think that makes things a lot of fun. And it says, yes, even Indiana can go from, that was a nice little story. They had a playoff game and they were overmatched, to they can win the national championship. Okay, now, do I think they're going to win a national championship? No, but I only say that because the longer they would go, the more stressful it becomes, and that is of an environment that I don't know they can handle. But would I take them? And I already have. We've gone over futures the last few weeks. I forget what they were when we took them. So now the odds, I haven't even looked at them yet. But now what the odds are, I'd probably say no. I'll take a look at it. I could probably take a look at it now because we're going to go over college football. So let me see what their futures are. Just to let everybody know, I'm on until 9. So we have another hour and a half at the most. And at 9 Eastern, we have our Penn State show. It's our preview show. So the guys are going to talk more about the Franklin firing. We were on the air Sunday afternoon. As soon as it happened, we were on the air with Marty and Dylan. So that's available on if you want to check out what we talked about. We went over a slew of coaching candidates to get their opinion on whether or not they thought they would be good matches with Penn State. So if you're a Penn State fan, it's a must watch. They're going to be on tonight to kind of go over the fallouts in Sunday and take a look at the game at Kinnick on Saturday night against Iowa. So that's coming up at 9. All right, so taking a look at the futures, where are they? See, now they're down to 9-1. I mean, I guess it's okay. It could have been worse. It could have been 7 or 6. But 9 is not bad. I'll admit that. It's okay. So, yeah, I would definitely – look, I prefer them where they were when we advise you to take it. But I do – that's a good number. Let's see if I see numbers. I love Notre Dame. So I put good money on them a couple of weeks ago. And they were like 25-1 at the time. So I still think 16-1 is not bad. They got one test, before they go more than likely to the playoffs this week. If they pass the test this week, they're playoff bound. Okay. That's based on their schedule, obviously. Who else? Anybody in here that's a big look? I mean, Oklahoma, not bad because with Mateer's injury, that was all Mateer injury. That's all it was. So as long as he's healthy, then that's a good one. You know, USC is interesting because even though I like Notre Dame this week, obviously, USC is we just don't know. We don't know yet whether they're for real because they haven't played anybody until the last couple of weeks. They started to play better teams, but they failed a test and they passed a test. They failed it on the road and passed it at home. But now they get a major test. And now we're going to find out how for real they are. So I will say this. I would probably, tell you the truth, I'd probably take this. Not a lot, but I'd take a little. Because if they were to upset Notre Dame, then in my mind, that means that they will find a way to get to the postseason. I don't think it'll be, we beat Notre Dame and then we're going to go and be the same old USC from the last few years. And we're going to, I don't know. I think that'll be a turning point that this team is for real. And look, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago when I said that Maeva would be an interesting Heisman guy before the Illinois game. I don't even know where his numbers have dropped to, but because I know that after the Illinois game, they were still good. But after last week, so you know how I feel about Vanderbilt and Missouri. I think Georgia Tech at 110 is – I'd rather tell you the truth. Instead of taking Georgia Tech, I'd rather do what I already did and advise you to take Haynes King as the Heisman. Because even if they were in the playoffs, all they have to do is get to the playoffs. If they get to the playoffs, I think Haynes King should be one of the top 3 Heisman finalists. Yeah, I don't see any other team. I mean, Washington's a possibility. I wouldn't discount Washington because that's a monster number. So I would look at them. Man, you have to really open your eyes, open your creative juices in your brains as college football fans, and you have to just be open to really strange things happening that you've never seen before, because we're going to start seeing that. It's going to happen. And what I mean by that is, look, even Arizona State, they lose that game last week because of their quarterback. The engine of that offense could not play. And it was, and that did not, you lose your heart and soul of your team. And then you got to go to Utah and play in that environment. They had no chance pretty much. They were, as soon as Utah took a 7-0 lead, the game was over. You knew it. And I got buried last week in the Wise Guy contest because I took Arizona State. And when we did the show last week, because I always check big games, make sure that no big injuries, nothing. He was probable. He was going to play. There wasn't even any major deal when we talked on Wednesday. What happened I think we heard about it Thursday or Friday. Might have been Friday. And then, boom, just like that, he's not going to play. He's doubtful. Probable to doubtful in like just one statement. But that's college. Nothing you can do about it. So my point is that it looks like he's going to play again this week. And if they can pull off the upset against Texas Tech, which I definitely believe they can, then all of a sudden that then becomes a real Big 12 title contender again. And then you're getting a gift at 400. Because again, I mean it when I say it. Any team that makes the playoffs has a chance. Now, Clemson, say I would still do Clemson for sure at this 500 to 1 number because of the fact that if they just can, the hard part is, believe it or not, it's not getting to the playoff. It's not winning playoff games. It's getting there. That's the hard part. And if they could find a way, they definitely need Georgia Tech to lose to Duke, which could happen. Duke's the favorite. So they need luck. They have to have teams get upset so they can win out and then get into the ACC championship game. If they can do that, then 500 to 1. Now, again, remember, when we're talking 500 to 1 on some of these teams, 400 to 1, you don't have to put up a lot of money. So those are the teams that I would be looking at. I don't think Virginia, I don't think they can do it. Their defense, they don't have a good enough defense. Okay. Anyway, that's it. Let's check out the games. Just do what we came here for. Okay. Let's see. Oh, what was I doing? I was taking a look at the. Let's do this first. Okay. So there's Indiana, USC. I talked about those. The BYU, I put them on the list because they're still undefeated. A major come-from-behind win against Arizona. Looked like they were buried, done. They get off to a 14-0 lead. Arizona takes the lead. It looks like it's over. The freshman quarterback is looking like he's going to have his bad game. And the freshman quarterback leads the team down the field. They get the game-tying touchdown with about a minute to go, something like that. And they were down 2 of the key defensive players. You got to keep an eye on that for the BYU game, the health of a couple of those players. And they found a way to win in overtime. So, so they set themselves up for a big Utah Civil War matchup. No, that's not Civil War. This is the Holy War matchup with Utah, which is going to be awesome. Okay, now the group of 5. So I teased all 3 of these teams over the last couple of weeks, but they're now officially our first team of the week for the group of 5 this season. And again, just to go over why, we mentioned San Diego State with Sean Lewis. It's his second year. And the funny thing is he was the head coach at Kent State. He turned Kent State around. I think they made the 2021 MAC championship. And then he gets he moves on after that. I think he moved on a year later. Then he gets the job at San Diego State. So anyway, he doesn't get off to a good start. But this year, he's surprising everybody. Remember, we said in the beginning of the season, we went over each conference, and just like we're doing here, where we go over everything. We went over everything in a season preview, and we said there were a couple of teams that might be interesting, middle of the road sleepers. If. And for San Diego State, it was their defense. They liked their defense. 10 returning starters. They had a new defensive coordinator. They hired this guy who was successful at Idaho and brought him in. And but then he had all those starters returning. And everybody knows that San Diego State Aztec football has always been about defense, the Desert Swarm. So that's back. And is that what it's called, Desert Swarm? That's Arizona State's defense, isn't it? What's San Diego State's? You guys know? Let me know who Arizona State's nickname was, their defense. I forget what it is. Desert Swarm is Arizona. So anyway, but what I said was that's if they can get good quarterback play, because that was they had nothing at quarterback. Now we mentioned the transfer, the kid from Michigan, the Donegal kid. He's got talent. Obviously, he went to Michigan, and all of a sudden, he's playing better than most of the other quarterbacks. He's not like a big time quarterback, but good enough. And the defense is playing outstanding. And they are just getting better and better. this team annihilated Cal not too long ago. And I think the problem is that the second game of the season, they lose to Washington State, and everybody thinks, well, Washington State's no good. That's a terrible loss. Well, you know what? As we saw last week, Washington State ain't that bad. So we'll get into them in a minute. But San Diego State, watch out. They are moving up on our official Group of 5 rankings. And I haven't even looked at their schedule because they're playing this week, San Diego State. I think so. Let's see, San Diego State. I want to see where they're playing later in the year. So they've got Nevada this week, and then they got a bye. And that's good because they got to start playing good teams at Fresno after the bye. Then they got to go to Hawaii a couple of weeks after that. And then they got Boise at home. And even their last 2 games are not easy. It's San Jose State and New Mexico. But Boise State and Hawaii back to back. And in 3 and 4, Fresno, Hawaii, Boise. That'll dictate if San Diego State can get it done. At least they get Boise at home. So yeah, I'm into what I see there. I think it's just they're just loving it. And it's a real fun thing when you follow these programs. And that's the other thing, like what I was saying with USC too. And you have to remember, there's so much uncertainty goes on with these college kids. They're so young. It's just a volatile situation. And now throw in everything that's going on in college football with the portal and everything, and you mix all that volatility in with a sport that is normally volatile, and it's just madness, volatility. And that, what I mean by that is that you don't know nobody knows, when a team is going to start peaking. And that's what you have to try to find before it happens. And that's the fun of it. And that's why I try to zero in on some teams that might be able to do that. Now, again, we're talking about can San Diego State do that and find their way to the playoff? Can USC be a legitimate national championship contender? All of those things, all those possibilities exist. So it's just a matter of whether or not those are the teams. Because again, for the most part, you don't look at those teams because usually in college football, it's about the big teams. It's always the big programs. But no. Just look at Indiana. All right. So Kent State. Remember last week, we had Kent State as one of our top 3 picks of the week. And we hit on 2 out of the 3. The loss was Arizona State. Okay. Sue me. So, and again, you know what happened. I never would have had him as a top pick after Levitt's injury. But anyway, with Kent State, I also said, and I mean this, is that you can't, as much as I like taking Kent State as much as USC on any given week, I think you do have to measure your excitement over teams from that level, because if you think it's hard to get information from Arizona State on a Levitt situation, just imagine how hard it is to get information on Kent State. And the least amount the harder it is to really know what's going on. And so that's why it's like, as much as I love those games, as much as I loved Temple against UMass week 1, as much as I loved Kent State last week, again, a same team they played, UMass, I still, it's like, why are they only a 2-point favorite against UMass? Am I missing something? So no, I didn't miss anything. UMass is just terrible. They can't play off. They're just, I don't even have to look. They've got to be the worst offense in the entire FBS. And we told you, Kent State was looking good. We went over it last week. Matt Carney, who was the offensive coordinator, gets the head coaching job. And they wanted to keep stability. They fired the coach, let him go in April or something like that. But we went over the way it worked out. 24-point dog against Buffalo. They lose the game in the last minute. They go to Oklahoma and only give up 355 yards, which I think was a big reason why they pushed Mateer to play against Texas. Because when we weren't sure last week, and we had the assumption that Mateer wasn't playing. And look, I mean, he shouldn't have played. That's the reason why we didn't even put that into the equation that he would play, because it was way too soon. Venables, terrible job. Should never have played Mateer. I don't care how badly Mateer wants to play. You're the head coach. You're the mature person in the room. You're supposed to see the big picture as much as you. I mean, what is he, a 4-year Oklahoma Sooner a guy that gets to play tech? Come on. You just got there. I don't care how big the rivalry is. No, what's more important is winning a national championship. And I just hope you even screwed the kid up. But getting back to this, the backup, as we said last week, didn't look all that great. But and Venables is probably like, well, if we can only get 355 yards against Kent State, what's going to happen at Texas? So we got to put Mateer in there. But that was still a really good. I don't care who the backup was. It's Oklahoma. And you hold Oklahoma to 355. That's saying something. Then they blew out UMass. So anyway, I think they deserve our kudos because this is last year one of the worst teams in all of the FBS. And now they are, I think, a legitimate middle of the road MAC team. And that's saying a lot compared to where they were. And then Kennesaw State, absolutely huge win last week in their matchup. We went over that. We liked them last week, as you know, and they came out and they got the win. And that was, big time for the program. If you look at it, they are now 4-0 straight up, 3-0 against the spread in their last 4 games. They had a blowout win against Louisiana Tech as a dog last week. And this is interesting. The first week of the season, what was it, like a 10-9 loss to Wake Forest on the road. And most people, including myself, where Kennesaw State was last year, we looked at it and we said, oh boy, is Wake Forest going to be bad this season? And now all of a sudden, fast forward to week 8, and Jake is doing a really good job at Wake. They're winning almost every week, at least lately they have. And Kennesaw State's on a hot streak. A lesson, and I try to remind everybody every year, football, you don't know what you have each season until like the midseason of both NFL and college football. And a lot of that has to do with schedules, matchups, and definitely in college with younger players developing, things of that nature. So yes, lo and behold, Kennesaw State, maybe they're going to go to the Conference USA championship game. In that conference, they are legit. They are a legit CUSA championship caliber team. Jerry Mack has done a fantastic job in his first year. Another one of these successful FCS coaches. And that's, I just love what I've seen from these athletic directors in the last year or two. The hiring of these successful FCS coaches. I mean, great job. You should be giving these guys chances. If they're successful, just because they're in a lower, look at Brian Kelly. What do you have? All those successful wins at Division II before he finally got the big jobs. We've seen that over. We've seen high school coaches, successful high school coaches become successful college coaches. I mean, so what? If they know how to coach, they deserve an opportunity to coach at another higher level. And I love the fact that more than ever, we're seeing a lot of these successful from South Dakota State, North Dakota State, Idaho, successful FCS programs, and they're getting these job opportunities, and they're really doing well. So good for Kennesaw State. Good for Jerry Mack. It's a lot of fun. That's college football. Now, let's take a look at the rankings, starting with the group of 5. No major changes in the top 4. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Remember last week they were the dog against, where's North Texas? I don't see them. I don't see them anywhere. South Florida, our boys came through for us in impressive fashion. They made us sweat at halftime, but wow, that was awesome. They just proved why they are and have been all season after the first week our number 1 team. Actually, did we start doing this? Actually, I think ever since we started doing this, they've been number 1 because we didn't start doing this in the first week. So yes, every week that we've been doing this, number 1. Memphis, Tulane, James Madison. The other thing, again, San Diego State's now up to 7. And ODU, that was a bad loss to Marshall. Now, Marshall, look, they're playing better this season than they at this point than they were in the beginning of the season. Another team that's playing better now. Good for them. Another first-year head coach. But OD, you can't lose that game. You had to believe they were looking ahead to James Madison, and it cost them. So Troy is the new 10 team. New team in the top 10. It's Troy. You know that we like Troy. And they came through for us against, they were one of our upset picks. They were a 7-point dog against Texas State, down 21-0. Kilcrease, the quarterback there, 400 yards passing. And remember that first start when he had to come in for the starter, Crowder? He comes in against Memphis, and he looked like he was the worst quarterback in the SBS, in the FBS. And it was like, oh, Troy's done. And then all of a sudden, he's just been better every week. And now maybe this is his job. So good for Kilcrease and good for Troy. And the top 12, yes, I have moved the Aggies number 1. And I've done that because I've seen enough the way they're playing. They're now on the road again. We'll find out for real. You know, the last time they're on the road, they beat Notre Dame. But it's about what I see talent-wise is there. And we always knew Texas A&M has talent. But now they've got the coaching and the talent, and they're winning games. They keep winning games. You know, they've got that Notre Dame win on their resume. And I shot Indiana all the way up to 2 because they deserved it. And the only reason I moved Ohio State down from 2 was just because, well, Indiana moved all the way up. Texas A&M and Indiana have just played better teams. Ohio State played Texas. I get that. But I don't care what Texas did against Oklahoma with Mateer's one arm. But does anybody really think Ohio State has proven themselves yet? No. So as soon as they do, then okay, then we'll see. It's week 8. All right. This doesn't mean anything. And then Miami, Notre Dame, of course, I keep moving them up. Let's see. Oregon drops to 8. And the 2 new teams, Missouri and Georgia Tech. Yes, Missouri actually goes in with a loss because it was an impressive loss to Alabama. And now they get their first road game. So we'll find out a lot about Missouri if they're a true SEC contender on Saturday. And Georgia Tech, undefeated in the top 12. And as we get into the lines, we'll segue into the fact that they are one of 3 dogs at 6-0 this week. I don't think I'll talk to Mark about this for sure tomorrow. This will be brought up on the show tomorrow. Have there ever been 3 6-0 dogs? So we'll see. All right. Let's go through it. SEC. Oh, what a great way to start. You know why this is a great way to start? Well, it's Vanderbilt. So you know where I'm coming from. Let's see. Dave, that's pretty weak. No, you're way off, Dave. By the way, it's I don't think there are I don't know how much cactuses there is in San Diego. Remember, we're talking about San Diego State, not Arizona State. So I certainly hope Arizona State doesn't have a moniker of Cactus Curtain or Fear the Fork. That'd be pretty terrible. All right, so we're going to start off with the my top game of the week. So this is it. Oh, I can go home now after this. Don't forget, in an hour, Penn State preview. Like anybody cares now, right? But Penn State fans. Okay, and that's what the show is for, Penn State fans. And by the way, if you want to find out about the Penn State-Iowa game, check it out. I think they'll probably talk about, probably be a half-hour show. Half of the show, they'll talk about the game, so you might want to find out the inside and we'll get into that. I actually think, I don't know if Iowa was the easy play that I originally thought they were going to be. The more time I think about it, I'm a little bit concerned, but they're definitely one of those top 8 teams that I talked about that I like. How can you not like going against Penn State right now? But maybe they get the interim coach bump. So, all right, that's the Big Ten. So Vandy made it as my top play. And it really just came down to it when I was going through, as I said, I got the 8, I started whittling it down and I'm nitpicking everything. When it just came down to it and I tried to look at them all, I was just like, look, I'm just going to go with the team that I said in the beginning of the season was my top sleeper in the SEC. And I'm just doing it. And this is why I said it. And the bottom line is, look, if they lose, then I lose. And then my prediction pretty much is done. I mean, sure, can they then run off every game after this and still get to the SEC championship game? Yeah, I guess it's possible. It's possible. And they can still be that sleeper, but unlikely. Because if they're not going to be able to beat LSU, then they're more than likely not going to do that. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is, and I'm going in. They're coming off a bye. I think that's important. And what's also important is that LSU, even after their bye, they did not show me anything against South Carolina. They looked like the same team we saw before the bye. So I was really hoping that we'd see, all right, something that's now look, they did get more yards, and as far as in FBS competition, they had over 400. That's something, but they beat South Carolina by 10. It's like the same type of scores, 20-10. So I mean, what's the Florida game? And what they have like 5 interceptions in the Florida game, and they barely, what did they score? 20 in that game too. So the offense is just not clicking. And look, Vanderbilt, Pavia made 2 big mistakes in the Alabama game, and that is not like him, which is why he's so successful, or going into that game at least, and still for the most part still is a very good road dog quarterback. And that's why I said before that for 58 minutes, 58-30 in the game, Vanderbilt was clearly going to cover the spread, because even though they turned the ball over twice in the red zone. So that's why if they would have just been run up and down the field by Alabama, and Alabama just totally controlled the game from start to finish, well, that would be completely different. But that's not what happened. So I'm going to give Pavia the benefit of the doubt, because he deserves it. This is his team. It's like Levitt with Arizona State. He's the lifeblood of the program right now. And he knows more than anybody that he fucked up. And I'm willing to give him the benefit of the doubt for one more game. So we'll see. Look, it doesn't mean I won't pick them to upset another team later on down the road, because if they lose this game, they'll definitely be a nice long shot again. And I'm sure they'll come through for us. But hey, this is for more than that. And it's also for beating LSU for the first time since 1990. And I do think that matters. Again, these are college rivalries, and I understand, Pavia is already, all right, check, beat Alabama, check. There's a lot of checks going on with Vanderbilt beating some of these programs. And this, I think, is definitely another one. Before I leave here, I'm going to check another one for you guys and knock that one off. And I think that's what's going to happen. So I'm taking Vandy. And obviously at minus 130, I am taking the money line instead of giving up any points. Mateer, another week, so that'll help him out. But check the schedule out after this one. Ole Miss, at Tennessee, at Alabama, Missouri, LSU. What that means is you cannot lose this game. If you lose this game, it's over. You're done. No playoffs. So there you go. Another reason why Mateer shouldn't have played last week. You should have had him ready and more healthier for this one and the rest of the season. Because again, you're just not doing it. Now you lose this one, it's over. Done. You are not running the table against that schedule. Okay. Next. And this is a game I actually like. This is one of my 7 or 8 top plays of the week. I'm taking Ole Miss. I really like the fact that under Lane Kiffin, they are 10-4-1 against the spread as a dog when they take on opponents with a 750 or greater win percentage. I also like the fact that Georgia is only 4-11 ATS as a home favorite since the 2023 season, 1-2 this year. And they're also 1-7 ATS when they come off of back-to-back straight-up ATS victories. I think this is going to be a close game. I'm getting 7.5, which is great. So, because I could definitely, if Georgia wins, I see this being a 1-score game. This is going to be a close game. And now, what happened? And look, what happened to Ole Miss against Washington State means nothing. It's one of those situations that you see all the time when a team disrespects another one. They've got a big game coming up, and that's what happens. And that's another reason why Washington State, which we'll get to in a little bit, deserves a lot more credit, because you can't just, even if one team it feels that way, still as the dog, you have to do something. You have to actually prove them wrong and make plays, which Washington State was able to, and almost pull off the crazy upset. But I'm fine with Ole Miss after that. That doesn't mean anything. And I think, again, Georgia's defense, I don't care that that they gave up whatever it was, under 250 maybe against Auburn. Doesn't matter. Auburn, we told you about Auburn's offense. You know about it. Arnold, it's a one-trick pony. They can run the ball, and that's it. And Georgia's got a decent run defense. Now, Ole Miss pass offense, that's a different story. So that's what's been hurting Georgia so far this season. And Ole Miss is also not a bad – where am I here? Oh, how did it – okay. And Ole Miss is not a bad money line play as well at plus 230. Okay, so let's go back to this one. So you got Texas A&M, 7.5 in Arkansas. This is Bobby Petrino's home opener. Hey, you know what Arkansas did last week when they lost to Tennessee? You know what they did? They turned the ball over. So they get rid of Sam Pittman. Remember, we went over that. We get rid of Sam Pittman. We went over all the turnovers at the end of games, and we didn't even talk about all the turnovers, what happened last year. So they get the turnovers this year again, and they get rid of Pittman, and hey, Bobby Petrino's taking over. Hey, we lost by 3 games. That's an improvement, right? Not really, because you turned the ball over again like several times. You did exactly what you did under Sam Pittman. Exactly. So they come back, and now they're at home against our new number 1 team. So A&M, hopefully it won't be a jinx because we just moved Oregon in there last week. So Texas A&M just a 4-11 against the spread as a road favorite since 2021. And Mike Elko 1-5 in this role last year. First time this year in this role. So that is that's why I'm not taking this game, because we've seen Arkansas play close games, but basically what we'll probably see is a close game, but at the end, Texas A&M will make the plays. Arkansas will not. And I also think this is a major deal for Texas A&M to not screw this up, because it could ruin their season. Now, they're going to lose. Every team's going to lose, more than likely. No one's going undefeated. Not in this. Not in this scenario. Not the way college football is being played nowadays. No one's going undefeated. So they'll lose. But you can't lose this type of game, because this is the game that they've been losing, that people will immediately, it's the same old Texas A&M, and they may not recover from that. So interesting enough, these two teams usually play, and that's because of Jerry Jones, Arkansas alum, at Big D, this neutral field. But for the first time since 2013, they get to play at Fayetteville. So interesting, nice little rivalry, normally played every year in Dallas. So we'll see what that does. Okay. Next, Florida, Mississippi State. Not a whole lot to say here. Mississippi State off a bye. It's only the 3rd meeting in 16 years. Florida winning 2 of them, straight up ATS, including last year as a 7-point favorite. They won by 17. Of course, Florida now the 2-4 team. Mississippi State the 4-2 team. How crazy is that? And it's now 9.5. So yeah, I don't know. This is a tough one to call, because with the bye week, Mississippi State has, even Texas A&M, they kept the game close until at the end. So I don't know. I mean, I'm staying away from this game, but this is going to tell us a lot about Mississippi State. Is whether or not, now that they're playing all these tough teams, one after another, SEC games, are they going to be able to hold up, and can they get a couple of wins out of it? So, again, if there's any time to do it, it's now. It's off the bye, 2-win team. So that's why I said it's a big game for the Bulldogs. So I don't know. I'm staying away from this one, but I think Florida has shown us enough resiliency under Napier and its homecoming that they'll put the effort out. So if I was taking the game, I'd probably go with the Gators. Texas and Kentucky. I'm going to take Texas in this one, because I am going to I'm going to guess that they're going to use the Oklahoma game as a big confidence booster because they have a good defense and Kentucky's offense has struggled. Now, this Cutter Boley quarterback, it'll be only his fourth start, but he has had his moments. If you look at it, he played good versus Eastern Michigan and good versus Georgia. So he's had one off week. So he's played, two good ones, one bad one. Problem is, this is a really good defense. It's the best defense he's played. And if you look at the trends, not a lot of them work for either team. It's one of the situations where the trends really don't just throw them out because they're pretty ugly. I mean, Texas has a 1-11 trend, a 3-11 trend. Kentucky has a 1-6 trend. How about this one? Kentucky 0-9 against the spread, coming off rest when they take on an opponent with a win percentage of 400 or better. That's pretty bad. But when it all comes down to it, I'm just going with the better team, the far better team, and the young quarterback having to go up against that defense. So even though Texas's offense still hasn't broken out, and we still haven't seen Baxter, and that's something. Look, if Baxter plays, I would be even more for Texas in this one. I like Alabama in this one. This is one of the finalists, one of my top finalists. I liked them a lot better at 7, but it is what it is. Tennessee's getting a big number on the money line. Both teams are 5-1. A couple things that stick out. First of all, Alabama 4-1-1 ATS versus Tennessee 1-3-1. And the fact that Alabama has beaten Tennessee 10 straight times at home, including the last 4 by a 25-point margin. They are also Alabama 23-7-1 as a home favorite against the spread since 2020, 3-0 this year. And we all know how they barely made 3-0. But I like Alabama. I think they're playing really good right now. And I do not see them slipping up against Tennessee, meaning I do not see this as a 5-minute to go 4-quarter game that they're going to need a Jam Miller 20-yard touchdown run with a minute and a half to cover the spread. Missouri and Auburn. And it's first road game of the season for Missouri. But that's okay. I looked at Missouri. I think last year they might have been under the same. Let me see where Missouri had I think, the same situation with Drinkwitz last year. And they were okay. And that definitely is important. Let's see. Okay. So last year, not as many games, but they started off 4-0. Yeah, that was 4-0. So it's not as many games, but they were a dog in that one at Texas A&M, and they got murdered. All right. But the one before that, 2023, they started out same thing, 4 games, first road game, they won by 17. So yeah, they've been, so one worked, one didn't. Look, it's not an easy situation. It's normal to feel that this is not going to be a good thing for Missouri to play your first road game in the middle of October. You would feel that that's going to affect them in some way. But Auburn, if you're going to play, look, you could have played Kentucky, but if you're going to play a team that's just got no confidence right now, it's Auburn. And we all know Auburn can't throw the ball, so they're a one-dimensional team. So yeah, this is a good opponent for Missouri to play. When they got buried by Texas A&M last year, that was a really good Texas A&M team compared to this team. So even though Auburn's backs are against the wall, I get that. This is a big opportunity for them. I still believe they're going to a bowl, even if they lose this game. They got Arkansas and Kentucky next. So they lose this game, they win those 2, they'll be 5-4. They're still playing Mercer, 6-4. You'll be in a bowl. So I think look, they're not doing anything more than that. Okay. And maybe that's also part of the reason why I like Missouri in this one. The loss last week to Auburn against, big loss, big Georgia came to town. They played a tough game, and they played tough games. They played a tough one at Oklahoma, tough one against Georgia, and they've lost both games in similar styles. They just don't. The defense keeps hanging them in the game, and in the end, the other team just scores. And I think it was 16-10 Tennessee, the Texas A&M game. This one, 20-10. So look, it is what it is, but I just think that might affect Auburn a little bit. Look, maybe that's why I said the confidence can't be there. And check this out too. In this role as a road favorite, Missouri has covered 6 straight the last 2 years. They were 3-0 in this role last year and 3-0 in this role in 2023. So 6-0 ATS road favorite since 2023. And they've outgained all 6 of their opponents this year, including Alabama last week. Auburn, meanwhile, 3 SEC games, outgained in all 3. So we know who the better team is. And now Missouri, after one loss, after a good competitive loss, Drinkwitz knows, hey, it's okay. We're going to lose. Every team's going to lose. We're in this for the long run. Let's take care of business this week and move on. And that's it for the SEC, right? Yep. Okay. Now, let's go to the Big Ten. Let's try to up the pace because I only have half hour. All right. So Friday, I don't know what to make of Nebraska. You know, they had to barely hold on to beat Maryland last week. Now they get a very similar type team, and the odds have actually gone up. I don't really look at Maryland and Minnesota as 2 different teams. I think they're both pretty much the same. They're both bad spread teams. They're combined 1-8-1 against the spread. So why would you want to take either of these teams against the spread? But Nebraska is clearly the better team. We all know that. Minnesota, though, has beaten Nebraska 5 straight times. So keep that in mind. Nebraska, too, 0-4 against the spread versus Power 4 teams this year. As I said, both bad spread teams. So I would just stay away from this one. Washington, Michigan, and Michigan did not look good against USC. I expected a lot more out of them, and they did not deliver. This is going to be a tricky one because I do like Washington. I've said since the beginning of the season, I think this is a nice little sleeper team, and I really mean it. Washington. And they show their defense has been a lot better than I thought they were going to be before the season began. And that's why I feel that they are for real as a sleeper team now. I don't know if they are really capable of getting to the Big Ten championship game, but this game will tell us that. This is it. This is their season. This is their shot. And they're getting Michigan at the right time. Maybe it's the wrong time coming off a loss because Michigan now at home. I mean, we've seen it before. Michigan goes on the West Coast and loses. Wow, right? That's been there, done that. But yeah, the thing that I would be worried about with Washington is the reaction to the loss because this is gut check time at Michigan. And that's not a time you want to be playing them usually. But I'm taking Washington. I'm taking the 6. I think the money line's in play for sure. I'm going to take them in the money line as well. And I don't even know if Justin Hayes is going to play. So look, if Justin Haynes doesn't play, I'd be all over Washington because he is the best player they have on the entire team right now. And so I would definitely look at that. Remember the other day, I also said that if Michigan's offense is going to actually succeed in the long run this season, they're going to have to find maybe one of these freshman receivers. Well, they found one in Andrew Marsh. So he's all of a sudden, because that's been holding them back. They have McCulley and that's it. But McCulley is just like a really good number 2 guy. He ain't no number 1. And now but unfortunately he's a freshman. So it just shows you the limitations that I just can't understand that Michigan has at wide receiver for that program, but they do. So I will say this, if Michigan wins this game, okay, then, and we'll see how they win. If they win an ugly game and they don't look like anything has changed much from how they've won games so far this season, then I'll think differently. But if they have a different attitude and it's almost like they're just rechecking themselves and understand that this is it. This is their season. They lose this, it's over. You know, it's Ohio State and that's it. And that's why this is a tough one for Washington because of that. Because Michigan knows this is it. So we'll see, but I still think it's worth taking Washington, at least with the 6, but only chuck that money line too. You might as well. Northwestern is the play here. Absolutely. You know that we cashed in last week at 10-1 on the money line. So, and once again, it came through with the exact formula that we thought was possible, which was the head coach, coming off the loss the way that they did, and how would they respond? And here's a Northwestern team with Braun, who's had a bunch of upset wins before. It was just a perfect kind of, and look, and that doesn't mean that they ever work or they don't work a lot, because a lot of times they don't, but that just worked perfectly with Northwestern. Because when you finish watching the game, and even while you were watching it, you could tell this is exactly, you kept saying, if you took Northwestern, you kept saying, this is working. This is exactly the setup I was hoping for. And as soon as Drew Aller went down, it was like, this is it. And a 10-1 money line play came through. Northwestern is 15-2 against the spread off of an upset road win versus a conference opponent. That's pretty straightforward. 15-2 off of an upset road win versus a conference opponent. So I definitely like Northwestern. I think they're being completely disrespected here with the 3-point favorite line. Purdue is only 3-9-1 ATS in their last 13 as a road dog. 0-1-1 this year. 0-7 ATS as dogs versus an opponent coming off a road upset win, like Northwestern is. And Northwestern is 2-1 straight up, 3-0 against the spread the last 3 years against Purdue. I'm taking Northwestern. And they're one of my better plays of the week. Ohio State should annihilate Wisconsin, and if they needed to, they would. If Wisconsin had to win this game by 50, they would. But with Fickell in town, in this one, I don't know how they'll feel. Former Ohio State coach, I don't know if they'll take it lightly. I think the only reason Fickell still has a job is because it's Ohio State and Fickell's ties, and I think they're just going to give him one game. They're going to give him a chance, because if you're going to fire him, then, if you bring an interim guy in to face Ohio State, that's murder. It'd be a terrible situation there. So let's give him a shot. Just go ahead. It's Ohio State. We'll give you a shot. We'll give you one more game. And, but yeah, Ohio State, they're going to sleepwalk to this one. That's for sure. But that's the question, is because I'm taking them. I'll tell you right now, I'm taking them, because I can see this game getting out of hand by early third quarter. But that's going to be the question, because Ohio State's offense has not just been like this juggernaut, and Wisconsin's got a good enough defense that they can keep this game low scoring enough that if they score one touchdown, they might be able to cover. Boy, Jonathan Smith at Michigan State. Now, I'm going to predict this. I might be completely off, but I'm going to predict this because it might be the best thing. That if they decide, because they're going to play Michigan next, if they decide after the Michigan game, because they're Indiana, unless they lose like 65-0, they're not going to fire him before the Michigan game, because it's still good. Same thing, sort of like Fickell. Look at even one more chance, especially if Michigan were to lose, because then Michigan is going to be right for the taking. But if Jonathan Smith gets fired this year, at any time this year, and it can happen, I think he's going back to Oregon State. And it would be the best thing for Jonathan Smith. You do exactly what other coaches have done, and then return to your university, the place that you cut your teeth. And yes, this could be pretty quick. Shiano, it took him a long time to get back, but we've seen this happen before. Coaches make their way back to the same university where they had success. And Oregon State finally got rid of Bray, which we've been talking about for weeks, and they finally got rid of him. Okay. He did a terrible job. Jonathan Smith left Oregon State in a great spot after doing nothing. They were a nothing program, and put him in a great spot. And then that's how he repays Jonathan Smith, by putting him back in a bad spot again. They haven't won a game yet. So I can see Jonathan Smith, if he gets fired, saying, I'm going back. That's where I belong now. And also they're now in a conference. The Mountain, I don't even know what this new conference is being called, but they're going back to conference. So he can also get rid of all that uncertainty that was going on, being an independent. That's not what you wanted. So now go back to Oregon State in a conference setting, makes recruiting easier. And that's my prediction. Jonathan Smith, head coach, Oregon State, 2026. What does that mean for this game? Nothing. I will say this, though. Michigan State probably, I think they should change quarterbacks. We talked about that last week. And if Indiana wins this game, this is why 9-1 is not a bad idea. If Indiana wins, again, if you didn't take the odds previously, the better odds, their schedule, believe it or not, this might be their toughest game, as crazy as that sounds. This is the reason why, I know they're a better team. They clearly are. They proved it last week. But come on, man, play better teams. The toughest team they played was Illinois and Iowa and Oregon. So that was it. That's okay. I got no problem with that. Those are 3 good Big Ten games. But the rest of the season, because Penn State's not good anymore, it's UCLA, Maryland, Penn State, Wisconsin, and Purdue. So, yeah. All right, Oregon and Rutgers. And I was surprised that the line was 14 because I jumped all over Oregon at 14. Now it's 17.5. That's what it should be, maybe even higher. Oregon, though, 9-1 against the spread when they take on an opponent off a double-digit loss. That tie came this year. Rutgers, 3-12 ATS as a home dog under Schiano during his second stint since 2020. 0-1 in that spot this year. And they've dropped 0-8-3 against the spread as conference dogs of 13 or more versus a 500 or better team. Now, I will preface this by saying this. Last week, Rutgers had all those great trends with Schiano coming in off the bye. I forget what the other one was. And they lost that one. So just, I think the only way Oregon doesn't cover this is if because remember, just even a few weeks ago, Northwestern, that game was not like a blowout, is if they have one of those games. They got to go to the East Coast, west to east. One of those games where they take a 24-7 lead at halftime, and then they just cruise in the second half. And then Rutgers backdoors them or something. All right. Penn State, Iowa. So, yes, we'll talk more about this. Or our boys will talk more about this at 9 o'clock Eastern. Penn State, we know what's going on there. It's a disaster right now. They're also 0-3 as a road dog against the spread since 2022. They're 1-10 against the spread as dogs of 15 or less. 1-10. Iowa is 4-0-1 ATS this year. Penn State is 0-5. So keep that in mind. I've got a Playbook magazine trend of the week. Iowa is 0-9 against the spread at home off of 3 or more consecutive ATS wins. So I'm fearful of that. I am. I'm also fearful of them coming again because they really didn't look like the last couple of weeks that they cared about anything. So find out tonight. Listen to these guys when they talk. Find out. I'll ask them if they don't bring it up. Are they going to fight at least for a week? Because if they fight for a week, it's not like Iowa's got some, big time offense, and Penn State still supposed to have some sort of a defense, if they fight. So, but other than that, I see no reason to believe that Iowa does not cover this game. Okay. This should be an Iowa easy win and cover, something like 20-6. So this was definitely one of my better plays of the week. I also like UCLA a lot. The only thing I'm concerned about is they're 1-7 against the spread as a home favorite, 0-1 in that spot this year. But Skipper's taken over. I know what you're going to say. Gilligan did too. But the fact is they're just a completely different team right now since he's taken over. And look, they got work to do. They're 2-4. They want to go to a bowl, so they can't screw around here. I don't think they will. Maryland does have a win on the road in their road game of the year, road game so far this season at Wisconsin. But hey, the way UCLA is playing right now, absolutely, I would take them. And you know where they're going next week? Indiana. So I like UCLA. I think they're going to continue their run And if they do, remember also Maryland, East Coast to West Coast. We've seen a lot of this go against the East Coasters this year. And we're seeing more and more of this with the weird ACC Big Ten deal with all these West Coast teams in their conferences. So I think UCLA is the obvious play. Here's Notre Dame and USC. This is one of the big games of the week, big rivalry. And in this rivalry, the favorite in the series has won 9 straight and have covered 7 out of 9, with the favorite winning straight up and against the spread in the last 4 years. Notre Dame, 10-4-1 against the spread as a home favorite in the last 15, 3-0 in that spot this year. And USC, the first time they're a dog on the season. It's also a big jump in competition, okay, because Notre Dame, a lot better than Michigan. That was their highlight game of the year. So this is a big, big step up. Lincoln Riley, as bad as he is as a road favorite, he is a good road dog. He's 5-1 as a road dog at USC. And here's one that I don't think will work because the line keeps going up. But remember this one for future. Notre Dame is 1-13 against the spread. Wait a second. No. This is not for Notre Dame. This is for USC. So remember this for USC. USC is 1-13 against the spread as a road dog of 8 or less. Okay, so remember that in the future if USC is a road dog of 8 or less. All right, so there you go. I think Notre Dame is clearly the better team. And the only thing I don't know about this game is has USC truly turned the corner? We know they've got some really talented players on offense. We've talked about that this season. We talked about it in the season preview. We had a really good interview. You can check that out if you want to find out more about USC. Still, you can find that in the library on our channel. But the defense, look, they got a nice young defensive coordinator, and it's a nice match. It really is. It gives you hope. Coach defense, offense with Riley. And it looks like maybe it's starting to go. So that's why I'm saying maybe they do upset Notre Dame. And if they do, that's why I was looking at that future number, because in my mind, if they were to actually pull this off, it means that they are going to just keep getting better and they're going to be there at the end. There's no thinking in my head that believes that if USC were to pull off this upset, that they would just go 2-2 in the next 4 games. I think now who are they playing? That's important. But hey, you win at Notre Dame, you can beat just about anybody. All right, so they have only one more game that's going to be a really tough one at Oregon. Okay, so if they can beat Notre Dame, then they can beat Oregon. And I actually think that they would. So that's why I'm willing to put some money on USC in that respect. And I don't even know what their Big Ten number is, but I would be willing to do that just based on – and remember, this isn't a Big Ten game. Okay? But and that's something also to consider, because if they were to lose this game, see, most teams, when they either play that beginning of the season tough game in non-conference, or if they play later in the season, it's usually a cupcake, like SEC teams. But I just think they're worth it. I think USC is worth it just in case. But if I'm taking this game, just this one game this week, I'm sticking with Notre Dame. Okay, I just think that USC has got to prove it to me first. Okay. Now, we're going to have to run through this quickly. ACC, Miami-Louisville. Should be a good one. I think Louisville is a dangerous dog here in a spot like this. Miami coming off a bye. They had a lot of positive momentum going into the bye. So that I think actually might work against them. It's possible. Here's one. 0-9 against the spread. Home with rest off a straight-up win versus a conference opponent. Okay, right there. So that would worry me. The favorite in the series has won straight up and against the spread the last 4 times. All right. So at least they have that going for them. But it's been since 2019. I think that's about it. Yeah, something like that. So it's not like they played every year. So, but it's still been Miami. And that's going to happen. I mean, Miami's just been a better program than Louisville. So I don't think that's a big deal. Okay. So I'd actually take Louisville in this one. I think Louisville might be a little bit. I think they might be able to be dangerous in this spot. And I don't know about the money line. Money line. Look, we've all seen Miami lose one of these. Just like I said with Texas A&M, it can happen. So it may not be a bad idea. Money line. I'll give my official double-digit money line plays for sure on Friday, but I'm thinking about that one. Okay, in this one, UNC, a West Coast trip. That's bad news, especially Cal coming off a loss to Duke. They also had a bye. They're 6-1 ATS off the bye. Meanwhile, UNC is 0-3 straight up and against the spread as a dog this year versus FBS teams by 120-33. That's an average of 40-11. The bottom line with Cal is they've had 7 turnovers in their 2 losses. So don't turn over the ball. They've had success. They've covered 9 straight at home off a straight up ATS loss when they take on an opponent with a 333 win percentage or better. And I believe they're going to do that here. I'll take Cal and give the 10. Georgia Tech and Duke, 2 of my favorite sleeper ACC teams battling it out with each other. And Duke has righted the ship after the slow start. They've won 3 straight up ATS by a 187-55 margin. That is by 42-19. And they've been a favorite straight up ATS in their last 3. So they're a favorite now. They've dropped from 3-1. Keep in mind, they're 0-2 straight up ATS as a dog this year, just in case that line drops even further. Georgia Tech has covered 7 straight off of a double-digit straight-up home win when they take on an opponent with a win percentage of 700 or less. And they're 1-0 in that spot this year. This is the toughest game Georgia Tech is going to play until the season ender against Georgia. So this is a monster game for Georgia Tech and the chances of getting to the ACC championship game, because that Georgia game isn't a conference game. So that schedule is going to see if they lose to Duke, what I was saying with Clemson. That's why Clemson has to, no scenario that Clemson gets to the championship game if Georgia Tech wins this game. But if they lose this game, then they just need Georgia Tech to get upset once. They won't get upset twice, but upset just once. Anyway, Georgia Tech has beaten Duke 4 straight times since 2020. And yet they're the slight dog here, but you can see the way Duke is playing. They're playing great, as we said. Look, I'm taking Georgia Tech. They're a 6-0 dog, and this is why I have Haynes King as a Heisman at 35-1, because he has just figured out ways. As much as I like Mensa as a pro prospect, he's a much better pro prospect than Haynes King. As much as I like Mensa and have been on his side since last year, the fact is that Haynes King has found ways to pull these games out. So if you're Duke, you've got to win this game before the fourth quarter. You've got to just catch Georgia Tech, turning the ball over. You've got a 3-score lead, fourth quarter, 42-21, game over. You go into the fourth quarter in a game, and you got to find a way to win this game against Haynes King, you're in trouble. This one, believe it or not, Boston College is only 1-point favorite of a UConn. BC fans not happy about that. It's homecoming, but this has been a bad year. I do wonder about Bill O'Brien. I don't think he's going to get fired, but will he leave and get another job in the NFL as an assistant and say this didn't work? Interesting, but I don't know. UConn 6-0-1 ATS away versus ACC teams. Boston College 13-1-2 against the spread. Straight up versus UConn all time. 13-1-2. Boston College 2-10 against the spread their last 12 versus non-conference teams since 2018. They're 1-1 in the spot this year. Hey, look, this is all about the win, basically. I'm actually taking UConn. I don't like what Boston College has been playing like. There's no positive vibes there at all. UConn, this is they need a game of the year. They need a game that they could say, hey, this is our win of the year, and I can see them pulling this out, especially since they've only won once in 16 career meetings with the local Eagles. Clemson, 9.5. You know which way we're going in this one. We're taking Clemson. We're riding this hot streak after the bye. They're 2-0 after the bye with the 79-20 margin. This is a rematch of the ACC championship. I just don't like the way SMU's been playing either. If you look at it, they had a 24-10 lead with 6 minutes left against Stanford. That's not good. They only won the yards battle by 16 against Stanford. That's not good. They're only 2-3 in the yards battle in the FBS this year. Not good. They're 0-1 ATS as a dog this year. They lost at TCU by 11 on the road, so obviously not good. So I'm taking Clemson in that one. Now, here's the Washington State game I wanted to talk about. Jimmy Rogers is the new head coach of Washington State. He was the South Dakota State head coach for the last 2 years, winning a FCS national championship, going 27-3 in the 2 years. This is a coach who knows how to win. And that's why if you look at Washington State, they're the only team to beat San Diego State this year, okay? They had 5 turnovers in their blowout loss to North Texas. They trailed their rival Washington by 7 points in the fourth quarter. They beat Colorado State as a 5-point dog by 17, and they lost to Ole Miss by 3 as a 33-point dog. This is not a bad team. Virginia better watch out. They're coming off the bye. They had a big win before the bye against Louisville. But Washington State, bad travel. I mean, they had to go to Ole Miss in the South, go back home, come back to go to Virginia in the north, kind of north-south kind of deal there, northeast, southeast. So that's a lot. It's their 3rd straight road game, too. So a lot of traveling for Washington State. But check this out. They're 16-1 against the spread as dogs of 14 or more points. Wait, is that it? Wait, let me check this out. I want to get this right. Where is it? 16-1. Okay, that's it. I thought so. 16-1 against the spread as dogs of 14 or more points when they take on an opponent off a straight up win. 16-1. So I'm taking Washington State in the 18. I'm taking them. Now I'm not gonna. I don't know if I'm gonna take the money line though, because I'm, as you know, big on Virginia. I've hit them with back-to-back money line plays against Louisville and Florida State. And I don't know if they'll drop this one, but it is a no, it's not. Yeah, it is a non-conference game, so it won't affect them. They're not a national championship team. So I'm going to have to think about that, but I probably won't. But it's not the worst idea in the world. Pitt, we talked about that quarterback who did a great job again against Florida State, the true freshman, pulling out the win. We had that one, as you know, as one of our upsets. We had who did we have last week? Single-digit upsets. We had Troy. We had Bowling Green. No, Bowling Green was double digits. Yeah, actually, the 10-point dogs. We had Bowling Green and Pitt. They were both like 10, 11-point dogs. Anyway, Pitt, and they get Desmond Reed back last week. Remember, we talked about how important it was to get Desmond Reed back. He comes back. He had a great game once again against Florida State. So that's huge. Syracuse, meanwhile, their season's over, of course, without their quarterback. The backup is, now whatever, his 3rd start, so he's showing some improvement. But Syracuse is 1-11-1 ATS off a double-digit straight-up loss. 0-1-1 in that spot this year. And they're 1-6 with rest against the spread. I'll take Pitt. This is a scary game because you don't know what to expect with Norvell. Will Florida State kind of give up like Penn State did with Franklin? Or because they didn't give up in the game against Pitt. That was a good game. They lost to a good team. And that's kind of what I think is going to happen here. I venture to say more. I would think that Florida State will blow out Stanford than Stanford actually pull off the upset. But just keep that in mind. It's a West Coast trip. It's a long travel. And you got to do that. And it's like the season's over. What are we doing here? But Florida State has covered 15 of the last 16 as a favorite of 30 or less off of a straight-up loss versus a losing team, 15-1. Next up, Big 12. Okay, we got a run here. Big 12. Baylor, TCU. In this one, both teams, the last opponent was Kansas State. And in that, Baylor outgained Baylor was outgained by Kansas State, but won. TCU outgained Kansas State, but lost. Anyway, TCU 3-0 straight up and 2-0 against the spread at home this year. I'm going to go with TCU. This is a tough one to call. Arizona's only 1-5 ATS as a road dog under Brennan. 0-1 this year, so that's not good. But Houston's 0-9 against the spread off a double-digit spread win versus winning teams. So that's not good. This is a tough one, really tough one, because Arizona's got to kind of prove it. And I just noticed that Arizona has now become the favorite. That's strange. I didn't expect that. That went from 2 Houston to 1 Arizona. Now, I know Wigman, the quarterback for Houston's, had some injury issues, so keep an eye on that. I'll have to check that to see if there's been any updates there. Nothing here except it's Rich Rod against Scott Frost. I think that's kind of interesting. All right, the line is starting to come down now that that the word is out that Sam Levitt's going to play. And that's why I took Arizona State 24 hours ago. I took the money line at 3-1, and that's going to start coming down now too. But with Levitt playing, that's going to be a big deal. Keep in mind now, we don't even know if Baron Morton's going to play for Texas Tech. And the backup, who had a good game against Utah, did not look good last week. So, look, Baron Morton, that's a big deal if Texas Tech doesn't have him there. But, look, I love Arizona State in this spot because Levitt's back. They're back to being a full team, basically, and their backs are against the wall. They cannot lose this football game at all. They lose this game, their season's over. And Texas Tech, they can lose this game and still win a national championship. So I'm all over Arizona State. This one is the Holy War. We know how big it is. BYU is a 6-0 dog, so you have to keep that in mind. Like I said, keep an eye on those injuries for BYU because they have a couple of big injuries, players that may not be there, key players too, that did not play last week. So keep an eye on that. BYU has won the last 2 in the series after losing 9 straight, including a very controversial 1-point win last year when they were still undefeated. They had a 4th down at like their own 5-yard line with like a minute left. And on 4th down, it was a pass interference called. And then they marched down the field, kicked the field goal, and won the game. Utah 3-0, straight up and against the spread as a road favorite this year. Looking to go 4-0. Monster game. Can't wait for it. There's going to be some great games on Saturday night. Cincinnati, a big favorite over terrible Oklahoma State. Okay. Now, quickly, with the American, let's see. Let's talk about this one because Tulane wants revenge. They lost the championship game last year at Army, 35-14. I think they're going to get their revenge. I'll take Tulane and the 10. Give it, I should say. They're 3-0, straight up and against the spread as a home favorite this year. They've covered 9 straight as a favorite of 21 or less with revenge. 9 straight. Army, meanwhile, is 5-0-1 against the spread on the road off a double-digit spread win. But again, Tulane's the better team this year, and I think they're going to get revenge. I'm going to take UTSA in this one. The line has actually dropped a point. North Texas, as I said, the reason why I loved South Florida last week, part of the reason, North Texas schedule, a couple of overtime wins, Army, Western Michigan. Now that kind of looks more out there and obvious. But UTSA has beaten North Texas 4 straight times, including the 2022 Conference USA Championship game. So I'm taking UTSA in this one. North Texas is 0-10 against the spread as a favorite of more than 2 off a double-digit straight-up loss. So that's 0-10. I'm taking UTSA. Let's moving on. Just show you Temple, what a terrible loss they had last week. UAB has a new coach. South Florida will take on Florida Atlantic. Oh, Temple. I can't believe they lost that game last week. All right. San Jose State, Utah State. Keep an eye on the quarterback for San Jose State and their star receiver, Danny Scudero. They were both banged up last week in their loss to Wyoming. Unknown if they're going to play on Friday. So you got to keep an eye on that. But I already liked Utah State given the 4 anyway. So if you could still get 3 right now, I would jump all over it, especially if one of those 2 kids wind up not playing. Utah State's covered 12 straight off a double-digit spread loss when they take on an opponent off a straight-up ATS loss. And Bronco Mendenhall, the coach for Utah State, has won 8 games, covering 6 1-1 in those games at home when he returns following a straight-up favored loss. So Utah State 6-1 against the spread. Their last 7 as a home favorite, 1-0 this year. And I'm taking Utah State, even without the injury news, over San Jose State. Big game for both teams. The loser is in a lot of trouble. Meanwhile, this is the big one in the Mountain West, the rematch of the championship game. But both teams have good spread numbers here. You've got UNLV 4-1, Boise 3-1-1. UNLV is 9-4 on the road as a dog. Boise's 14-5 as a home favorite. This is another 6-0 dog, but this is a lot of points. This is almost 13. Boise State has owned UNLV. They've beaten them, 9 straight times, including 3-0 straight up and against the spread in the last 3 since the 2023 season, with 2 Mountain West Conference championship victories, 2-time championship victories over UNLV. And remember, even though both teams are not as good as they were last year, I just think Boise is still a little bit better than UNLV this year, because UNLV really hasn't played a whole lot this year. They really haven't. And Boise State's been a much tougher schedule than UNLV. I know it's a lot of points. I don't know. I would lean towards Boise, but I will say this, that it's not a bad idea if you want to take an undefeated team at 340 on the money line. Air Force and Wyoming. This could be a fun game because Air Force can score, but they can't stop anybody. The home team in this series is 6-0 straight up, 5-1 against the spread since 2018. Hawaii and Colorado State. I really like Hawaii a lot in this one. If you look at it, Colorado State has been outgained in 4 of their 5 versus FBS teams, but Hawaii has outgained their opponents in 6 of 7 on the season. Hawaii, 2-1 straight up, 3-0 against the spread in the Mountain West Conference this year. And let's see. And last week, they snapped an 8-game losing streak versus Utah State. And I think I bring that up because I think that's really important. It shows you that they're having a better year. As we've said all along, they were a nice Mountain West Conference sleeper team. And in order to keep that going, they have to win this game. Colorado State had a nice upset against Fresno last week. Now, maybe it's the beginning of a great second half for Colorado State, but I'm going to bet against that and say that Hawaii is going to find a way to prevent a second straight upset. Meanwhile, this should be New Mexico, you would think, but Nevada, as I've said before in recent weeks, they are a tough team to keep an eye on in close spots, even though we had them big time against last week when we rode San Diego State, who blew them out. Sunbelt, Troy, and ULM. Where do we have it? Here we go. 6-point spread. If you look at it, Troy has covered 6 out of 7 as a road favorite. They've covered 6 straight. Believe it or well, that's one of your funny little playbook ones. They've covered 6 straight before they take on Louisiana. But I told you about Kilcrease. He's had an incredible run. He threw for 415 and 5 touchdowns last week. They're coming off back-to-back overtime wins, both in the SBC. That's why this is an important game. ULM, meanwhile, has played a very tough schedule. So you got to keep that in mind. They're 2-0 straight up, 1-0 against the spread at home. So as much as I like Troy in this one, and I've been riding Troy all season, ULM was also a team that I thought could be a nice sleeper in this conference. So they're 0-6 against the spread as dogs of less than 17 when they take on an opponent with revenge. Look, I like in this one, but this one could be tricky considering ULM is at home. Here's the game of the week in the SBC. Could be the game of the year. And James Madison is only a 1.5-point favorite. Old Dominion is 15-6 against the spread. Their last 21 as a road dog. 2-0 in that spot this year. James Madison is 3-0 straight up versus Old Dominion the last 3 years. And they have won the last 2 by 3 points each. So that's why these have been really tough battles. This is, again, potentially the game of the year. These 2 teams are in the same division, so only one team can be in the SBC championship game. How about this too? Old Dominion's covered 8 straight on the road after allowing 35 or more. This is going to be a tough one to call because of Old Dominion's upset last week. That's why it's kind of interesting. They got upset last week to Marshall. James Madison, they won their game, and yet Old Dominion is almost the road favorite here. I'm a little bit surprised by that. I don't have a pick here. I just don't. I mean, James Madison was my preseason pick to be in the playoffs. USF was 2 to start the season, and Old Dominion. I've been a big Ronnie fan, as you know. This is a big year for them, so I'm kind of torn, which is why I'm staying away from it. In this one, first meeting between Texas State and Marshall. And in this one, let's see, it's a 3-point favorite right now for Texas State. And they have all of a sudden dropped to 0-2 in the SBC this season. Who would have thought that after their start? They played James Madison next week. Marshall 3-1 straight up in their last 4, even though they've been outgained in all 4, including the upset over Old Dominion last week. They got 5 turnovers in that game, which has helped, of course, the victory for Marshall. Louisiana getting 3.5 here from Southern Miss. I actually like Louisiana. Homecoming, Lunch Winfield. We talked about him last week. He's 1-1 straight up, 2-0 against the spread since taking over in this spot. So I'm going to take Louisiana. This is a big game for them where their back's against the wall in the SBC. All right, and to wrap up, because we don't really have a whole lot of time left, I'm really cutting it close here. Let's see, in this one, let's see, we like, actually in this one, we actually Eastern Michigan in this one, actually. Eastern Michigan's actually had a pretty decent season. They haven't been able to finish games off, but they had a big win last week against Northern Illinois, and they lost the week before that in overtime to Buffalo as a big dog. So they're actually playing their best football right now. Miami, meanwhile, we know Miami. We know the class and all that kind of stuff of this conference. But this is a big number. I'm actually taking Eastern Michigan. I'm getting 14 points here. I'm going to take Bowling Green as a 4-point dog. We talked about taking them last week as a nice upset win over Toledo. It's the first time they're a favorite this year, though, so we got to keep that in mind because they've been outgained at all 5 FBS games. Central Michigan, meanwhile, interesting. They've covered 6 straight following a bye, but they do have a new head coach. 1-7, though, against the spread in the second of back-to-back road games. 0-1 in that role this year. Here's that Kent State team of ours against Toledo, and it's a big, big spread, so you know we're taking Kent State in this. I'm not telling you to take the 18-1 money line, but I told you all about Kent State. You know how I feel about them. Meanwhile, Toledo was 0-2 straight up and against the spread in MAC play this year when they're on the road, but at home they have covered and won the game. So they've been a completely different team, but this is a lot of points, which is why I'm taking Kent State. I also definitely think you should take Buffalo. Pretty much every time a team takes on UMass, you should take the other team. Buffalo is 2-0 straight up ATS the last 3 years against UMass by a 68-10 margin. And the final game on our schedule is the Conference USA game between Delaware. Where is it? We didn't get the game in time. Okay. Well, I like Jacksonville. No, I didn't. All right. So that's going to do it for our coverage. And next week, when we do this, I'm not sure if we also have another conflict. No, we don't, because they're off next week. So next week, we don't have to rush. Next week, I'll be able to take my time, and maybe we'll do a 3-hour show next week. So thanks for tuning in as usual, everybody. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. That's the best way to support us. You can also hit the thanks icon on the bottom of the screen. You could donate to the channel $1, $5, whatever you want, and let us know if you do that, why you did it, and what's on your mind. And we'll appreciate that. And we'll see you tomorrow for more coverage on NFL and college football at 1 o'clock Eastern. Playbook ATS podcast, Mark Lawrence, Jim Feist, Andy Isco, and myself. So thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again for this show next week and every Wednesday right around the evening time for at least another couple of months, it looks like. And once again, thanks for tuning in. We'll see you soon.